nation that's actually a certified cannabinoid medicine specialist. So, yes, we need more of us. And I'm also a family physician, and I've been boarded in that, and I'm an occupational environmental medicine physician specialized in heavy metals, and I'm also a medical review officer. So my world has kind of gone complete 180. I came from where I was working for the federal government, where my world involved literally popping people that tested positive for this chemical known as THC, that is still federally illegal, this plant. But we are in the lovely state of Massachusetts, where we can say over 30 other states have a medical program, and we are also in a state where we have adult use, is what I'd like to call it. We are facing a situation right now where there is an opioid epidemic or an opioid crisis. And I can boldly say that I, Dr. Uma Dhanabalan, has not written an opioid in a decade. Yes, not a yes. And the reason is because I believe that we have options. And it's not just about pharmaceutical drugs. I'm not saying that there's not a role for them, but I think we have other options. And the reality of it is, most doctors and most healthcare providers and most people don't know about a beautiful system known as the endocannabinoid system. How many of you know about it? Excellent. I would love to spend more time and teach you folks, and I'll be happy to do that. But what I want to say is the system is in all of us right here. It's a system that has evolved over 600 million years from a sea squirt to what we have in humans today. And yes, when we say endocannabinoid system, it has something to do with also cannabis. And cannabis is a plant that has over 1,000 different chemicals, over 144 different identified cannabinoids, terpenes, flavonoids, and other chemicals, much more to be even identified. But what we do know is that this plant has been used as medicine for thousands of years. I'm originally from India, and in India, cannabis is a sacred plant and was part of the Ayurvedic medicine and still is. And William O'Shaughnessy, a physician, first learned about this medicine in India in 1833 and brought it to this country and to Europe. And what's also fascinating is that many people don't know that it was used by doctors, and doctors had the liberty to write a prescription for this medicine. Today, I do not have that liberty. I'm allowed to write a recommendation for this plant because it's still in Schedule 1. Sadly, it's been there since 1970, the year I came to this country. It's also the year that the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, was created. It's also the year OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, was created, and also when the Controlled Substance Act was created. And what they did is to place drugs and medicine into different categories. And they placed them in 5 categories. And they placed cannabis in Schedule 1, stating that there's no medical use, no research, and a potential for abuse. Lies, lies, lies. Nobody has ever died from this plant, from an overdose. You can't. You may feel like you're gonna die, but you won't. The government has a patent for this plant, patent number 6630507, issued on October 7, 2003, and the government holds a patent stating cannabinoids, yes, all of them, as an antioxidant and neuroprotectant. And what that means is that they've known about it for Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, stroke, and the list goes on. And it was in the United States Pharmacopoeia from 1850 to 1942. And one out of several indications was opioid addiction. Not the cause of, not the gateway, but the treatment for, and even for alcoholism, and also the treatment for insanity. Not the cause of, but the treatment of. So, where do I stand as a physician today? I'm on my own way of practicing medicine. I don't work for any hospitals, universities, insurance companies, Medicare and Medicaid. I get to do it my way, the total healthcare way, THC. No pun intended, but yes. And I use 3 words: educate, embrace, and empower. And all of my patients know about the endocannabinoid system. I can't say that about all of my colleagues, but I can say that about my patients. And I get to spend time. We spend almost 30 minutes with our patients. We are not a fly-by-night where people just get a card. If that's what you want, there are places that do that, but that's not what my promotion is, because your health is your body and you got only one, and you got one life. And I believe it's your right to know the information, and I believe it's your choice to make your decisions. So I've also created a nonprofit. It's called Dr. Uma Care, and the CARE stands for choice, alternatives, research, and education. And that's what I do, and I believe in it. And I also state cannabis is not for everybody, but it should be a first-line option and not the last resort. I also believe that we need laboratory standards, we need testing. If we don't know what we're putting in our bodies, why would you put it in there? And that's the problem that we're facing in our society today. The food that we eat is processed. The water that we drink may be contaminated. The containers that we drink from are plastics, all of the chemicals. And what our society fails to realize is that this plant called cannabis is food, fuel, fiber, paper, and medicine, and that's what it is. And we replaced it with the Hearst, the DuPonts, the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, and the Mellons. And they had a badass mouthpiece by the name of Harry Anslinger that said things like reefer, that's what they still refer to it as, makes darkies think that they're as good as white men. Reefer makes darkies think that they're good as white men. Yeah. Racism, not evidence-based medicine, politics. So in this day and age, on March 22nd, 2019, we have the liberty to be able to use this in this state. I want to make sure that this plant that's killed nobody stays that way. Because if we don't know how it's produced and what went into it, we can create a poison. And that's my concern. And I want to see standards. I want to see heavy metals. I want to see check for solvents. How are they growing it? Why did these pesticides show up in these plants? Who's checking the water that the water is used for these plants? And the people that are trained to see these patients, what's their training? Because there should be some type of way that we can make sure that it is safe. Because I truly believe this plant is for people, It's for pets, it's for the planet, it's for peace and profit. Yes, it's all of it. But we gotta make sure that we don't make it into a poison. And I also believe that what we see today is that I'm fortunate to continue to learn. And I love what I'm doing. We're losing 130 people today to this opioid epidemic that was created. And we were a part of this, we meaning the society and clinicians. In 1996 is when pain became a fifth vital sign. And there was a drug that we were allowed to give known as OxyContin. Yes, I had a mug that said the one to start with, the one to stay with, OxyContin. Look at what we're seeing today. We've seen synthetic drugs, we've seen heroin, and now we're seeing fentanyl and more drugs coming out there and killing us. And it's available there. And then we talk about alcohol, which is allowed in our society and available in your homes. And we take our children to these events called restaurants and dinners, and we serve alcohol and we accept that. And we get in the car and we drive home. Every function has something to do with alcohol. And I would love to see where cannabis becomes an option and not alcohol. Because what we're seeing in my patients, when cannabis is available to them, they don't want the alcohol. It is the exit drug. And I state that. Cannabis, the exit drug. That's my trademark as well. It's not an entrance drug. It's an entrance drug to a good life. But it's the exit drug from pharmaceuticals, narcotics, alcohol, nicotine, and methamphetamines. I'm adding that to my list because we've got the data to show this. We have patients that have been on medications, not for 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 30, 40, 50 years of their life. And there is no exit plan for your doctor, nor do they have the time to spend with you. And by the way, every patient that walks into the doctor's office, 1 out of 3 of them is given a prescription. There's a doctor dying every day right now, folks. We are facing where doctors are dying right now from suicides, if you've not heard. Because there's a lot of people that are miserable that are in my profession. And women doctors are more likely to die twice as much as other women. And I'm proud to say I'm a happy doctor. I love what I'm doing. And my patients love me. And I get to see the change in them. And every day that I do this, I am even more committed. And I'm not stopping. And behind me, my army is growing. Because at the end of the day, we are all patients. This doctor-patient relationship, it's great, but people forget that these doctors are patients too. And they're miserable, many of them, forced to see patients. We were told 7 minutes a doctor had to see a patient, to write their notes, make sure that their prescription was waiting for them, and all their preventative education. That doesn't happen. Doctors don't even look at their patients anymore. They don't even know how to lay a hand on them because they have to do that thing called the electronic medical record. I have one of those, and I dictate in front of my patients so they know what I said to them. And this is about all of us working together, and this is why I'm loving what you're doing. Biondi is going to be with me tomorrow at the Heinz Convention Center. One of the other things that I do is called Doc and Jocks. And I'm the doc. And we have jocks that are all athletes that are supporting this message, which is my mission is to change the stigma regarding cannabis and for the world to know about the endocannabinoid system. And I'm doing it through education. So whatever information that you learn, ask, how can I share this information? My mother used to say 3 words: learn it, do it, teach it. And that's what I'm asking all of you folks. Learn what you're putting into your bodies. Look at those labels. Where did it come from? Who made it? Is it organic? Is it GMO? Non-GMO? Because if you're putting that stuff into your body, that's what you're eating and consuming. And at the end of the day, this is about inflammation. No matter where it is, if it's on your skin, it's dermatitis. If it's your joint, it's arthritis, bursitis, appendicitis, pancreatitis. It's some freaking itis, right? And at the end of the day, they got a pill for you. And if that pill doesn't work, we got something else that can work. And if that creates another side effect, we can take care of that too. So I start with 3 questions for my patients. I say, are you peeing? Are you pooping? And are you sexually active? The first 2 better be yes, but you'd be surprised. We work on the 3rd one. And my youngest in my clinic is 18, and my oldest is 98. And we are seeing some sassy seniors. And they're the ones that are really benefiting from this because they're the ones that have been on so many meds, and it's become part of their repertoire. You know, 1 pill in the morning, 1 pill in the afternoon, but it's not just that. I feel sorry for the caregivers that have to put those pills in those boxes. You know what I'm talking about, right? The ones that you take in the morning, evening, once in a while. If that doesn't work, we got another one. And the commercials that we see. If you weren't ill, you're gonna be ill. And we got a pill for that too. So understand that we have an opportunity, and it's actually something that's important for you first. And this is why I say it's not healthcare, it's self-care. And start with you first. And I tell people we empower our patients by saying that. And I talk about the ABCDEs. A, if you're aware of something, hold yourself accountable. B, you want to be better every day, or the best. So develop some behaviors. C, you got a choice now. Get committed to it. D, I know you're determined, but get disciplined. And I'm a really good pain in the ass. I teach my patients that, and I teach them how to be that. E, we educate them. That empowers them. We give themselves a hand. And we understand that this is a work in progress. And yes, we're all going to rest in peace eventually. But in between this time, we call it life. And that's the word that I describe this beautiful system known as the endocannabinoid system. Dr. Damaso explains this system in 5 beautiful words. He says that the endocannabinoid system is meant for you to relax, eat, sleep, forget, and protect. And I look at these 5 words, and I say if any one of those things as out of an imbalance. So if you look at what we're talking about, is that this system was meant for us to have homeostasis, balance. If your muscle is constantly twitching, it just doesn't work. If you eat too much, obesity. If you don't eat enough, anorexia. If you sleep too much, depression. If you don't sleep enough, insomnia. If you forget too much, Alzheimer's, dementia. What if you don't forget enough? Post-traumatic stress. If you keep remembering the things. I always say jokingly, if a woman remembered childbirth, guys, you ain't ever getting laid. Thank God we forget, right? So protection, overprotection. What we're seeing in our society is autoimmune illnesses, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus. All of these are overprotection. What if your body doesn't protect? What if you're on an aspirin or you're diabetic? So remember the mantra, relax, eat, sleep, forget, and protect. Because if this system is at a dysfunction, it causes a dis-ease. And this dis-ease leads to illnesses. So let's think about that. So if we can get people to have another way instead of having another pill and not go to the alcohol, why not? And there's different delivery systems, different ways. My patients come in and they say, Dr. Uma, I don't want to get high and I don't want to smoke it. Okay. When you're 90-something, you say, okay. They come back in 3 months later for their checkup and they go, I got me a pipe. Okay. And they say, it's great because I could do a little bit at a time. And I teach them that cannabis is your food. Food is medicine and cannabis is food and medicine. That's what Dr. Uma teaches them over and over. I said, do you know what you put in your body? Do you look at your serving sizes? Do you know how much you eat? That awareness. And then we teach them, titrate, not dose, because dose is a very pharmaceutical word. Every freaking time, 500 milligrams, 500 milligrams. With cannabis, you don't know. It's not the same every time. I compare it to fruits and a strawberry. It doesn't have the same number of seeds. So we use 3 rules. Dr. Uma's 3 rules are, many of you that are my patients will say, hydrate before you medicate. Always. People don't drink enough water, folks. And if you don't drink enough water, your kidneys are going to have an issue. So hydrate before you medicate, because also dry mouth, dry throat can make you feel panicky, can make you feel anxious. Always start out low or very low with food. Why with food? Because if you consume cannabis and you don't have food on board, you're going to get anxious and jittery. And that's a scary feeling. And rule number 3, journal. Because every time you can have a different experience and you don't know. So remember Dr. Uma's 3 rules. Hydrate before you medicate, start out low and slow with food, and journal. And remember, titrate, not dose. The other thing that's very important, learn. I love acronyms. So what I mean by that is L, be leaders, be educators, be advocates, be somebody that they can come to for resource, and be novel in what you're trying to do, and be kind. And this is what we want to do, because at the end of the day, what you have in your knowledge and your experience is what's meant to be shared. And it's not perfect every time. And that's what I love about cannabis and teaching my patients. And it's not only cannabis I talk about. We talk about breathing. We talk about meditating. We talk about doing exercise, moving. And what's really important is we're bringing generations together. My youngest are having their parents, their grandparents, their great-grandparents come in. And yes, we're all going to die, but why not be able to die with dignity? That's the other part that I get to see. Some of my patients I only see for one time because it's going to be their first time, because I know they're terminal. And many patients that are told that they're terminal are still outliving their doctor's prognoses. So that's also another thing, is that don't give up. Look into options. See what's out there. And that's the beauty of this internet right now, is that we can share the knowledge. And it is frustrating to me that we're not moving faster, that more knowledge is not mandated, but it's because cannabis is still federally illegal. So I'm fighting for 5 things. On a global level, they speak all over, and I want to see legalization. I want to see cultivation. I want to see product development. I want to see laboratory standards. And I want to see education about the stigma, let's face it, and everybody should know about the endocannabinoid system. There's no reason that everybody should not. You know about your digestive system, you know about your cardiac system, your reproductive system. Why shouldn't you know about your endocannabinoid system? And especially when you understand that cannabis works, because in 1964, Dr. Raphael Mechoulam first started to work with this plant in Israel. And they identified THC, and they said it's the psychoactive component, and CBD as the non-psychoactive component. I don't like those words, because again, those have their own stigma. I like to use the word intoxicating and non-intoxicating. So THC is intoxicating, and CBD is not, and there's a whole spectrum in between. And understanding how these all work together is where the journey will continue, and how it works for you. But what we understood is that it wasn't until 1988, the year my son was born, that we understood that there was receptors in our body. But even before that, the drug companies said, oh, THC, the molecule that works, let's just go synthetically make it. And they did. And there's a drug called Marinol that's still out there, that is written as a prescription, because you can reproduce that same dose every time. Does it work as good as cannabis? No. Can you overdose from it? Yes. But it's a synthetic drug, and depending on what it is, it's in Schedule 2 or Schedule 3. What we understand is that there's CB1 receptors that are in the brain, CB2 receptors that are in the immune system, but these receptors are everywhere, and many more. And what the beauty of it is that just like we understand the nervous system, we understand that we have neurons, and that's how things communicate. So the presynaptic is where dopamine and serotonin are made. They're released, and they bind to receptors on the postsynaptic. What we learned is in 1992 that our body made endocannabinoids. And what's unique is they're made from the postsynaptic on demand, and they bind to the receptors on the pre. So it's a retrograde mechanism. Wow. So it's trying to balance you out constantly. And the first endocannabinoid that was identified was called anandamide by Dr. Mechoulam. And anandamide is also in breast milk. Baby's first drop of breast milk has anandamide in it. And in animal research studies, they blocked it. And what happened? The animals didn't suckle. And if they didn't suckle, they died. That's why I call this system life. And they freaking forgot to teach it to me. I'm a little perturbed. Aren't you? So, on that note, I want to say that I'm loving what I'm doing. I'm proud to say I'm a cannabinoid medicine specialist. And I'm proud to say that I haven't written an opioid, and I'm able to give my patients another option. And it's a safe alternative, and it works. It's able to reduce their meds, and it can be used as a complement with their other medications. So think about it. Understand that you all are a part of this. So please open your hearts. You don't need to use this medicine, but you know somebody that can benefit from it. Open your minds, because we all have an endocannabinoid system. And on that note, I want to say thank you. I want to open it up for a few questions, and to say, Yandi, thank you again, and I'll be seeing you tomorrow.
Of course, of course.
Thank you. questions? None?
Okay, I'll throw that one in there. Everybody has this paradigm, THC's the partier and CBD's the healer. Can you speak to that? Because that's not true.
Well, I'm glad you brought the question up. The question is CBD and THC. So, like I said, it's a spectrum. And I believe these all work together. And this is where we talk about the entourage effect, why we want it all. And I'm saying there's a whole big hype on CBD. And I feel like it's just one little molecule. It's like me saying my right thumb. What about the rest of the 9 fingers that you got on your body? What about the other parts? So the issue is right now that if it is coming from hemp, and hemp is that the percentage of THC is less than 0.3%, it's considered hemp. If it's more than 5%, it's considered marijuana. But understand that this plant all comes from the same genus, which is Cannabis sativa. There's 3 species, Cannabis sativa, indica, and ruralis. So understanding where it comes from is one of the important sources. And yes, THC, I don't like to call it the high, like I said, I call it the healing molecule, the healthy molecule, the happy molecule, the molecule for hope. But CBD has an equal role. And I'm like, if we can get somebody to understand that if this is a starting point, it's a starting point. But we really need the whole plant. But it's something better than nothing. And if you're gonna start with hemp seeds. On my table, if anybody comes to my office, there's a bag of hemp seeds. And I'm doling it out. Because I'm like, look, let's start here. You can give it to your kids. It's legal. And 3 tablespoons of hemp will give you 10 grams of protein. It's 180 calories. It's got over 20 amino acids, and 9 of them are essential. It's a perfect omega-3, omega-6 option instead of eating fish oils, because I don't know where the freaking fish is coming from today. So, seriously, that's a big concern, heavy metals, right? The other thing about hemp is that in the olden times, they used it as a porridge for people to heal lung disease. And I didn't mention this, but this is the reason I got involved in this, is because I lost my mother 7 years ago to lung disease. And she had never smoked a cigarette in her life. She never ate red meat. She was never overweight. She exercised and did all the right things. But she had thyroid problems, diabetes, cholesterol, Lyme's disease, and she died of idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. Fancy term for we don't know what caused her lung disease. But it was my mother, 3 years before she passed, saw a TV program and said they're using ganja. And I said, what is she talking about, ganja? And I beelined it into the bedroom, and it was this TV show about how cannabis was used in Israel. And in India, cannabis, we call cannabis ganja in India. And I wish I had the gumption that I have today, 7 years ago, because I believe she would be alive today. And because of the work we're doing now, there's people that have the same illness that have, like my mother, that are alive. And the ones that are caught early can have a longer life. And there's a guy that had the same illness. He's walking 3 miles a day, no oxygen, and using cannabis. And yes, he inhales it. And inhalation is, to me, one of the first methods that I'd like to tell people to use, as long as it's clean. Did I answer your question?
Yes, please, thank you.
I have a question for you regarding, I know a lot of people like to try to be stealth when it comes to taking in their medicine. And I've heard some things that I'm not really quite sure, maybe you can allude to it a little bit, regarding vaporizers, well not actually vaporizers, but oil cartridges, and if there's any heavy metals that leach into that, because that would be kind of counterproductive.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you brought that up. So the question about inhalation and vaporization, you know, if I could make sure that the flower, again, remember what I said to you at the beginning, the source of the product. If the source is not clean, and then we put it into these things, and we now have people inhaling it, and it's toxic, it could be toxic. It will kill you. And there are different kinds of vaporizers out there, and there are concerns because even how they're heating it up, and this is my background with heavy metals. it's not that the heavy metal when it's in a solid form, it's when it gets heated. And when it gets heated at different temperatures, it can be inhaled, and then the combinations of it. Now, there's people that are doing CO2 extractions, there's butane, there's ethanol, there's doing different methods. So it's really important to look at the source, and are they testing it? And really looking to make sure. How often? Because the shelf lives of these things have still not been tested. And does it change that if you use it and then you let it sit there? If you leave it in a position where it's exposed to sunlight? All of these things make a difference. And I do have concerns. And this is where I'd love to see more studies done with this. And Dr. Donald Tashkin, who is another person that you guys can look up research data, Dr. Donald Tashkin at UCLA, who's a pulmonologist, looked at 4 groups of people. He looked at people that had smoked nothing, people that smoked tobacco, people that smoked cannabis, and people that did both tobacco and cannabis. And lo and behold, the people that smoked cannabis had less lung cancer than people that smoked nothing. Yeah, because it's that antioxidant. They looked at the other group of people, people that smoked tobacco and cannabis, and what they found is the people that smoked tobacco and cannabis had less lung cancer than people that smoked tobacco alone. So yes, I have patients that have asthma and lung disease, and by using this medicine in different ways, if it's clean, it actually is a bronchodilator, it's a vasodilator, and lo and behold, back in the days, when it was prescribed by doctors, they had asthma cigarettes. Yeah, that's what they had. So look it up and see that inhalation has been around as a long time use, and they had tinctures. My dad worked for Park Davis, and Park Davis, Eli Lilly, had all made these meds.
Dr. Bloom, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So Grammy can't take the weed because she gets too high. What's your feelings on suppositories?
I'm so glad you went there. So the question is, what's my thought on suppositories?
Backdoor is best.
Oh, well, I say the mouth and the anus are delivery systems, right? So I always talk about inhalation is great, it's quick, but so is the rectum. And there's a thing called the pectinate line, and if you go past that, it goes in even longer and quicker. And when you think about babies that are seizing, or people that are nauseous, or people that can't hold things down going down this way, why not? And the vagina, let's talk about that too.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Let's talk about that. Because women, if they're not happy, guys, you ain't getting laid either. You know, and this is not just about sex, but it's about quality of life. Because peeing and pooping, remember the questions I told you at the beginning? I asked, are you peeing, are you pooping, and are you sexually active? Well, suppositories work great for all of that. Because when people have prostate cancer, when people have had their hormones stripped, or have had rectal issues, or hemorrhoids, or a whole another thing that let's talk about, I have a whole transgender population. So people that are having things removed and added on. Painful, mentally and physically. So yes, the rectum, I'm so glad you brought that up. Because I talk about it as, it's a delivery system and it works. And remember this, when it goes through the mouth and you have to digest it, it has to go through this organ known as the liver. And we call it first pass. And if your liver is screwed up or combining it with alcohol or your other meds, it could be toxic. So it takes longer and cannabis gets changed. It goes from 9-delta to 11-hydroxy, and it becomes a much more potent chemical, and it lasts longer. And so people that can't wait, the rectum is a very quick delivery system. Also understand that Grammy, that doesn't want to fall either, has so high on her, they are high as kites when they walk in. They don't even realize it. And so we tell them, you're high now, we're going to put you through healing. What we tell them is low and slow, and to journal. Just like they got all their pills laid out, I literally sit with them and we go through this and we teach them how to lower their meds. And we teach them about different options. And I like inhalation for my seniors because they can titrate it. And then with the edibles, it's tricky every time. So we gotta make sure they understand low and slow. Don't start out with the same amount last time. Small teddy bears are more potent than the big teddy bears sometimes. So you gotta be careful. Safety first, do no harm. But understand that for the seniors, there's a lot of different delivery options. Tinctures is another thing that I talk about. Microdosing. This way they get their water in them. You could put drops in it throughout the day so that they're having small amounts, so that they're not fighting and fleeing, they're flowing throughout the day. And that's another delivery mechanism. Did I answer your question?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you kindly.
Yeah, one more now.
Yeah.
I noticed earlier you spoke about anandamides.
Yes.
So I noticed that there's a buildup also whenever you do meditation, or at least I've read that. So could you speak on the buildup of anandamides through meditation and correlation to cannabis, using them together for mental wellness and well-being?
Well, you know, it's very interesting because you say that, because what we're realizing is that if you're depleted in this, you're endocannabinoid deficient. So if you're saying that your body produces endocannabinoids on demand, and it's not producing it, or overproduction inappropriately, it's that thing that I talked about. Dis-ease, illness, leads to this. And this is where more research, if there's ways that we could start to see how it's working and how we could find out, what do we measure? You know, we learn to measure somebody's glucose to tell us about diabetes. You check somebody's blood pressure to talk about hypertension. What are the other indicators that we should be looking for? Absolutely. We need to look more into it. But depletion of anandamide, breast milk. Where?
Over here.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So my question is a little bit different. Could you tell us your thoughts on juicing?
Oh, wonderful. I'm glad you brought that up too.
Other than juicing, whether it's to eat or for healing purposes. I know cannabis hit bird victims work very good together.
Absolutely.
Pain control and healing.
Absolutely. It's all about healing, okay? But this is where, you know, too much or too little for everybody can be inappropriate, and this is where you have to figure it out. So you talk about raw juicing, and this is another way. We tell our patients, for grandma, one of my grandmas used to take the leaves of the trees, and she would actually boil it. She was decarbing it in a way, and drinking it as a tea, and then she would take what was left over and cook with it. So people can juice the leaves, the plants, and even eat it. It works very well, and this is where our patients are, you know, using their cannabis now, vaporizing it, and then they use that flower for cooking and also making tea. So
And when you do the raw, you're not going to get
intoxicated.
Yes.
Well, see, this is where, you know, that word is a very, you know, this is why I say when people take CBD and they feel, when they say, oh, it's non-psychoactive, I defer from using that word, because if something relaxes you and calms you down and makes you feel less anxious, isn't that kind of psychoactive? So it depends on how you feel. Everybody's, the chamomile can give a sense of soothing to people, but they might feel a little intoxicated with that too. So this is about you. I tell this, I empower each of you to understand, try it, but try it with caution, try a little bit, try with even just juicing it. Try it in your food, try something. And if it works and it can help you lower one pill, I think we're on the right road. Yes?
I have a question. I think there's a lot of confusion about tincture and how much like sublingual
To use?
dosing, or that how much is absorbed.
That's why, so
sublingually
this is why, we're not there yet. And anybody that's out there making these claims, I'm sorry, you're lying to our people. This is why I don't make any claims. I say titrate repeatedly. I do not say dose. I am adamant about it. I don't use the word dose at all, because I say we don't know what's in that tincture. Tincture of what? And what's the, and if people don't know how to do math, if it's 10 milligrams per ml and they say, well, one drop and I just happen to pour, I don't know. So don't be squirting it in your mouth, I tell people. You know, put it into something and then take it. Or if you're gonna do it, just make sure that you know what you're doing. Because you know you're not gonna die, but that sensation of feeling uncomfortable is no fun. So to answer your question, start out low and slow. titrate. Make sure you got food on board. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
In regards to standards in the industry for the testing and all that, what do you see on that end? Do you see progress being made in there?
I do. So the question about do I see standards? Well, this is the engineer in me. My father's a chemical engineer, and he made baby products and worked for Menon and worked for Park Davis. And he made my life very simple. He goes, you guys are really confusing this a lot. 85-year-old man said, remember PIP. He said, no matter what it is, you're going to create a product. And you got to say, where did that product come from? What was the ingredients that went into it? And what was the process that went into it? And if you don't check every step of the way, the ingredients in the process, you're going to have a faulty product. So that's what I want to see. I want to see those kind of standardizations happen in this industry. That you start to say, you cannot be having those things in your process. Because if you do, we know this is what's going to happen. And if you choose to do that process, great. Check it out. Let's start seeing. What is the levels? What does it take? What can cross-contaminate? There needs to be that kind of a process that has to be set up.
Have you seen anything going toward that? Is there anything in the industry
Well,
that's-
the fact that we're at least checking, and the fact that we're starting to say, guess what? This is a plant, and we're not getting the same readings because we don't have standardization. One lab does the same process 3 times. They're not getting the same numbers because we haven't standardized that. Do you do this first and then mix A with B and then C? And the chemical reagents, 18% variation in the standards. So, well, that's like saying, well, maybe you're a little pregnant. Well, what does that mean? Either you are or you're not. So this is where, if we're gonna say ranges, let's talk about that and say, well, it's a guesstimation. But if we can make sure that those products are not exposed to those heavy metals and the chemicals in the process, then I feel safer. And hopefully we're gonna come along more. You know, patients are gonna learn and ask. And maybe we can even be able to have, where we can be able to check our waters and have kits. And this is where the entrepreneurial pieces are, that people can start developing things that people can test their products at home. Just like we could check your urine and see if you're pregnant or not. Thank you. Okay. Oh, our website is totalhealthcarethc.com. I'll leave some cards here for you. We do home visits. We take care of, my clinic is in Natick, but we travel all over as well. God bless. Thank you.
Well, that's Dr. Hoover for you. I'll tell you that. Guys, the food is here. Please grab some finger foods if you guys are hungry. We're gonna go right into our cannabis health and wellness panel with none other than Doug McDonald, Julie Battle, and Laura Castro. So guys, come on up, come on up, come on up. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Hello.
Yeah.
Realize.
Oh, please.
It's okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, I'll join you guys.
Join
Okay.
Yeah, we need like other people on the panel.
Well, 2 seconds. I gotta go grab a cap. I gotta make sure that,
It's on?
that's on.
It's on.
Yeah. I can that woman back there can hear me. Do you? I think so. I think so. For everybody. What? Gotcha. Oh, I've got it, yeah. Those on the table.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I know, I just, yeah, I'd love a water actually, yeah. Sure. Yeah.
First time doing these things, so.
Calvin, and you met We just
Yes,
did.
we just
Yes,
did,
we
yeah.
just right. That's right. You guys did. You guys have met before?
No, we just went to the, I didn't tell them.
Nice to meet you. Tonight. You've met Callie though.
Callie? No, I don't think I've met Callie. Have I met Callie? I don't think I have though.
Have you been to Worcester?
No.
Nope.
Is that where she is?
Yeah. She works at a Worcester
So
office.
who's got to work? So Julie and I have signed up for the luncheon next Sunday, 31st, in Worcester. At the White
Would you guys like some water?
I had some.
They did. Thank you. So,
Thanks so much.
I think we ought to put Dr. Umo back out here. She's fabulous.
Is she usually at Stoughton?
No,
I mean, is she usually at Peabody?
Who's that? Shelby?
No. Dr. Uma. Oh, she doesn't?
She's TLC, right?
Yeah.
Is that what she said?
She used to though? Duda, I'm thinking that.
Yeah.
Duda and Uma.
Yeah.
I'm confusing
Yeah.
those two.
Dr. Duda works in Peabody.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because she's
And
the trained understand in people. And that's when I decided when I go out and I have maybe I cannot work.
Hey, how are you?
Yeah, that clinic is, well, yeah, that
Yeah,
clinic.
yeah, a little bit too small. I can't, that's too small for me. I told Kathleen, I said, I'll tell you what, I'll do all of them, I'll do, I can't do anybody, it's like a closet. And I'm just like, I just have too much. Oh, thank you. Yeah, we just may need it. Who knows?
Yeah, I know I need it.
So Christmas Day,
See him. I know, I haven't seen him in a long time. Or, James, who's here.
did I see James? Did I see James? I thought I saw him get his haircut.
Yep. He's right over there. He's back.
Oh, I see him. I see him.
What's really weird about the whole Peabody thing
Exact.
is that there's so many medical records. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like there's something missing. Like, I don't know. It doesn't seem like have those people in those medical buildings are aware that you're there? Like the doctors are in all the medical buildings.
Yeah. We all of them do all marketing, outreach, and all of them. Oh,
Just there's so many, like I get a lot of inquiries from Lehigh,
that
I mean from the Lehigh, saying, we don't know anything, can you
yeah, we
talk
can't
about
get
this?
into
Can you
things.
solve
We can't get into that building. No one lets us in. The security officer at the door. What are you doing? Here's out. That is the rebuff. We need a way back. We have no. If you know something in the clinic, please. Yeah. I've seen Jason there 10 times, John there a bunch. We can't get into there because there's nobody to sign us in. There's no issues. Just walk in.
Yeah, no, I've definitely, I mean, I get requests from providers.
Send that to me because that
I'll
I
speak
will.
to their group level.
Okay. Let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's awesome. I can forward all
I mean,
those
it's-
Cali kids. That is what Cali's job is. Setting up.
I did send the most recent pot.
And she is really good about action items. So
Yeah.
if you send it to her, okay, cool. Yeah, she's still one of the people that has.
Hey, listen, if you want to get
I did want to say hi to
Meaning just like Cali.
Right. I'm trying to figure out
You can always tell when you can't cancel a while. It's first name,
Right. That's true.
it's a little,
That's true. Did I read that the company bought some medical valves in Arizona
And you know, so here's the deal, I got this whole like,
the one in Colorado is called
for the, like,
Relaxed
on the
Clarity.
Saturday.
Arizona.
A good time, like,
they're actively
Yeah?
Purchasing.
Cheers to that. I like it. I like it.
So,
of the just
I'm gonna do,
what do they call it? They call it an organic expansion.
someone be in there, they'll be like, hey, so where are you from?
Whatever, like buying someone.
Pillage and-
Yeah, whatever that one
That's
is.
good,
And
though.
like
Buy
That's
and
really
pillage.
good.
yeah, basically.
Literally, that's the reason why I came to Cannabis, because I was a patient specialist at a dispensary. I worked at the patient site too. You know what I'm saying? So,
Whenever you're ready.
I've been with Cannabis for a while, so like, I feel you. I'm trying to be an all-around player. You know what I mean? I'm trying to be able to do it all. On Facebook and stuff? Or Cannabis Association? Yeah, no, really.
It's all good. It's casual for me.
How's everyone doing? Hope everybody got the plate. Make sure everybody eats today. My name is Kelvin Calindras. I'm a co-founder of the Green Torch. I just want to start the panel now, so everybody make sure they get a plate. Everybody eat. We're going to start with an introduction. Everybody's going to introduce themselves. So we're going to start here now.
You can start first.
I'm Doug McDonald. I'm the regional manager from Cannabis Docks, and I live in Welding.
I'm Julie Battle, and I contract work with Cannabis Docs.
I'm Laura Caslow. I do the same thing. I'm a nurse practitioner and I contract with Cannabis Docs as an authorizing provider, and I very much love my work.
It's me again. And I'm the site coordinator of the Waltham office for Cannabis Docs as well. So I'm able to spend a lot of time with these lovely people right here. So, cannabis, health, and wellness, right? Obviously, you probably don't even want to talk to me about it. I mean, I could tell you a little bit about it, but obviously, you know, these are the professionals that, you know, kind of run the train, per se. And a big question that I wanted to ask you guys, you know, I ask you guys all the time, but a big question that I think everyone here wants to ask is, not only what benefit do you see from you know, seeing patients come, especially like renewing patients for the most part. What's the number one like indicator that yes, cannabis is working for them? Let's start with you. Let's start with you.
I'll make it short and sweet. I have often, my renewal patients will say to me, cannabis has changed my life. It's reduced my pain. Typically, I have a very big mouth. It's reduced my pain levels. It's helped with my sleep, my symptom management, and I really can't live without it. It's been great.
I always ask what if it's a renewal and not if it's the first renewal. We'll often talk about how the first year went, how the learning curve was, if there are things they wish whoever certified the first time had told them at that appointment that would have made the initiation a little bit easier. And with renewals, a lot about what dispensaries have you been to, what products have you tried, how have they worked, and it's actually fairly consistent from year 1, year 2, year 3, that I find people have branched out more and more, tried more various products and gone to different places, and I feel like that's always That's always a good sign that they're really trying everything.
For me, when I see like a renewal patient, they'll say like, "Oh, Doug, like last year you said, you know, I may not take as many pills or something. And, you know, I'm not taking LMNOP, XYZ, anything like that." So it's really validating to me to see that folks are maybe not coming off everything, but you know, if it can be used as an adjunct and can help, you know, that's positive right there. Yeah.
So someone like myself, right? I have anxiety problems, and I just want to know, like, how do I start off? Like, what would be the best way to start off? Would you recommend doing an edible or smoking it? You know, because my biggest problem, like I have, is I care about my fitness. You know, so I'm wondering basically if I'm able to take an edible or smoke, will it ruin my fitness? And that's, I think, one of the biggest problems. Most people say that smoking does make you slower, and I want to know if you guys believe that and what you guys think of that.
So I just want to understand, when you're saying that it makes you slower,
Right. So people believe that if you smoke, right? I think people believe if your lungs, you tire out faster.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
basically, I'm just trying to explain that it doesn't. You know, because there's a lot of athletes that play sports. You know, so I
Right.
wanted to know what would you recommend to start? You know, smoking or edibles or.
So it would depend on a number of factors, and including how, if you are, you know, people who haven't used cannabis before, we call cannabis naive. So that plays a role. It would also play a role if you would, you know, what I would ask you about what's your history with cannabis, and if you told me, you know, just like Dr. Uma said, there's so many people that we see who are like, I don't want to smoke and I don't want to get high. So I need to figure out, like, if you wanted to get high, like, is that something that helps you also, or is that a side effect that we're going to try to avoid? And then people feel certain ways about smoking, and I feel like it's always easier to start out with smoking or vaporizing because you can tell so quickly if it's working or not, and starting someone off with a tincture or something is a slower process, but it has to all go along with. So if you were someone who was saying, yeah, actually feeling intoxicated is part of what helps my anxiety, then that's a different discussion than I don't want to get high at all, or I'm working with machinery and I want to deal with that anxiety. That's a different thing.
Yeah, so the question really, what I'm asking, another question is sativa or indica, or, you know, what would you recommend, like a hybrid for myself or something like that, you know? Just trying to figure out, I want to know the process of how you guys figure out, you know,
Yep.
how to introduce somebody to it.
I agree with Julie. And the other thing that I would add is that I would ask the patient what they're comfortable with for consumption methods. What is their lifestyle? What are they doing? What are their needs? And kind of work with perhaps having them do a morning regimen that is a little bit different than an evening one. And to also try to teach them not to be so afraid of THC, because you can consume very small levels of THC without getting psychoactive effects. So it's more in the THC actually helping the CBD work very efficiently with anxiety and so on, if they're not looking for those psychoactive effects. And
I just wanted to, when you're done, I just have one more thing to say.
oh yes, please do. So I basically feel out their lifestyle and what their needs are and go from there.
I just want to say, in terms of when you're talking about an indica, sativa, hybrid, that sort of thing, we're finding out that those distinctions are more botanical than medicinal, and the medicinal is more about the terpenes. And we're starting to focus a little bit more on the cannabinoid ratio, like if somebody might do well with a THC and cannabidiol in a 1-to-1, and then if you have, indica-like linalool with it, it could be sedating, or sativa-like pinene or something like that, then it can be more. So I'm not focused. We're moving away from that.
Right. So what are you moving towards? So, the recent studies with terpenes and cannabinoids, how has that conversation been with patients? How do you kind of guide them through, like, hey, you might need some myrcene or some linalool, or how do you program that? How do you write that into a script?
We never use the word
Script.
script.
My bad.
We never prescribe. It's an afterverb.
I draw a picture, actually.
Oh,
I do.
wanna
I
hear
draw
this
a
picture.
I draw a
This
picture,
whole thing.
and I just say, like, these are the cannabinoids, and these are the terpenes, and what we're learning about whole plant medicine is it's a complete paradigm shift. It's the opposite of pharmaceuticals, which is about a single molecule, and we're learning that we've been taking THC out of the plant for so long. We started taking cannabidiol out of the plant, and then we put them together, and we're like, oh my God, they're even better together. And the plant's like, you idiot, stop separating everything. They all work together, and they all work as scaffolding for each other, which is the opposite of what a pharmaceutical is. But so we talk about that, and then when people see this, it's simple if you just explain that cannabis is made up of cannabinoids, terpenes, and flavonoids, or something like that, and then you can say these are the ones that act on your receptors. This is more the flavor profile, flavor and smell profile, and that affects people in sort of almost what is that? I just lost a word.
The
Aromatherapy way.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So it affects your feelings, but it doesn't necessarily affect if it's going to. You might use a 1-to-1 for pain. You might use a 4-to-1 for anxiety, and a 1-to-4 for sleep. Something like that.
Okay, so what do you believe? Do you believe that the CBD, all you see nowadays is CBD, CBD, CBD. It's everywhere. It's in the gas station. Do you believe that CBD is going to be, like, what do you believe that they're trying to do with the CBD? Like, how come they're not promoting THC? How come they're not showing it's just CBD is all people hear?
It's all what's going on legislatively. It's all about, the fact that it is non-intoxicating is why it's regulated in some states, it's not in some states. Everybody's really confused about it. It's gray, but it definitely, it is, there are different sources. It's from hemp. It can be high quality, it can be low quality, it can be full spectrum. It can be that diluted single molecule, which is not as efficient. But I think that people who don't have access to any products that have THC in them, cannabidiol is helping a lot of people. But we're in kindergarten. Like, that's how far we are with the education, with our educational knowledge, really.
And I think yesterday CVS said that they were going to start retailing CBD products at all their. That just says right there that it's not going away. it kind of says to me that there's definitely going to be other cannabinoids that come out that are going to be like, oh my god, this is also a blockbuster, when we do research and find out about cannabinoids that we don't even have names for yet. So this really just, again, I said before, validates a lot of everything that's going on.
I agree with Doug. There's a lot to be said about CBD, and I think the reason why we're hearing so much about it is because there's a lot that can be done outside of, well, as we know, the CBD that's hemp derived is from a very weak part of THC. And now we're learning with some other studies done over in Israel, I believe. I think the last ones I read were regarding CBD, obviously in a form with THC, that obviously the THC can make the CBD work more effectively in your endocannabinoid system. So that being said, people that have arthritis or more severe forms of pain tend to be affected more with a higher level of the THC as an adjunct to the CBD. Whereas the stuff that's on the market, Amazon, I think the CBD products for that are very good for minor types of pain, but when you get into disease processes, you probably benefit with a little bit more.
Okay, I got a question for you guys. How has your old colleagues or your colleagues that you're still in contact with now, how's that conversation? And so, obviously you guys got people that work in hospitals that, are told hey, don't really push for cannabis. How is that conversation? What do you know what I'm saying? What is the healthcare professionals saying about cannabis, as a whole, from at least from your experiences?
It's been changing. It's been changing quickly, but there's still a good part of the medical community who take a "I don't believe in it" kind of stance, which is always surprising to me because it's not a religion. It's not a belief system. It's a plant. There's things it does. There's things it doesn't do. It's just an interesting. It's almost beyond it's not scientific thinking, so that's always very interesting. But everybody else, certainly my old colleagues are, I'm always getting texts and messages and stuff asking, with a photo, a screenshot of a product, or how is this any good, or will this help my mom, or and just a lot of people sort of seeking out information, not so much necessarily for their patients yet, but
For themselves
that's
first?
happening more for their families usually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
that's usually the first way that it brings a lot of medical professionals in, is if they see it helpful in someone. Yeah.
Do you think, how much of big business do you think plays into that role? You give me that look. I'm just saying, how much, is it do you think it's an over staggering number? Is it?
That big business plays into what role?
As in, just pharmaceutical companies, in conjunction with medical professionals. Is it? Okay. That look kind of says it all.
It's a mess. It's a mess.
Question.
Yes.
With Martha Stewart jumping into the CBD,
Yes.
do you think that is actually going to open a lot more people's eyes to this, being that it is someone mainstream, someone who not only has her own show, but also operates with Snoop Dogg, someone who is famously known for cannabis usage, or we'll say, whatever.
We'll let our resident Martha Martha Stewart answer that
Yeah.
question?
Absolutely, James. I agree with you. And that's what I kind of think as well with some of the, what industries are okay with people having a medical card and using cannabis safely, responsibly. And I think when you get into somebody who has run into a situation where their family member has used marijuana products and has reaped the benefits, people start to learn and to read and to understand better. And it's kind of opening up the window for education. But I think it's derived from experience.
How do you, in terms of concentrates, okay? I mean, me personally, I'm a big fan of solventless concentrates, right? How, for a new cannabis user, for a new patient that walks in the door, how do you explain to them the benefits, or how do you walk them through just dealing with concentrates in itself, as whether it be hash or keef or your solventless diamonds to your rosin, I can go on and on. But how do you not scare them? I should say, how do you kind of break it down to them as, it is, yeah, it's concentrated, yeah, it's stronger, but how do you break it down to them that yes, it is still a medicine? Because yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think edibles are scarier.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
Well, how so?
Because people have no idea what their tolerance is, and and then even though you tell them just try and just don't eat anything else that day, don't eat any other cannabis that day, they'll still an hour or so. And I feel like with concentrates, you shut it down when you feel it enough. So that's just, it's more user-friendly. Yeah, I mean, concentrates don't scare me at all. I think that they have a great use. They're great for breakthrough pain. I think the trouble that people get into when they use them all the time is that their tolerance builds up so high that they end up spending a lot more money on their medicine, and then you're also losing a lot of the finer points that in the ways that cannabis can benefit you when you're just reaching for that. Yeah. But I don't think they're scary. And I think most generally when people come in, I'll say, what have you used? What's your experience? And if somebody, I dab, or I use shatter, or whatever, that, we'll talk about that. But I don't usually recommend it, certainly when someone is just starting. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, I think it's a great option.
I was basically just going to say that for a naive user, I'm always going to kind of explain what concentrates are, but kind of say you can definitely try them. It may be a bit much for you, and that's really what I'll go with that. I'll go over everything and what they are, how they work, like a vapor cartridge. Honestly, at that point, that's probably the easiest for a naive user, because they can just literally sip a tenth of a mouthful or something like that. So. That's what I've said.
Do you believe in the carts? Do you like carts over smoking the leaf, or what would you?
What's your preference?
Yeah, what's your preference?
And
why?
Yeah.
Personally, or as a?
Honestly, both.
Okay.
Yeah, give us both.
I definitely am a proponent of full plant flower, or rosin or something like that.
Smoking or vaping?
Smoking. I've definitely, not really, but vaporizing flower, but not really vaporizing oils as much as I used to. Definitely, in the past couple of months, there's been some articles
found in the actual like piece of like the cartridge itself. So I don't know. China definitely doesn't have the same standards as America, and those things are banged up by 1,000. So who knows? Yeah. But yeah, I'm definitely a flower guy, and I definitely tell patients the benefits of full flower. Sorry.
So basically, I'm just gonna go back to saying that I ask, what are you comfortable with? And if they say, well, I'm really comfortable with smoking or vaping, then I'll kind of go down that avenue of, okay, that's a quicker way in for avoiding if you have anxiety disorders. It's a good way to counter a panic attack. There's also ways that you can consume that carry you through on a longer spectrum of time, I guess.
I don't know what my favorite is personally. I feel like that rotates on a weekly basis. I'm always interested in new landscapes with that. But in terms of, I am not very comfortable with the cartridges. But just because of we don't have data. People haven't been vaping for hundreds of years. And we know that there have been some products that have had lead in them and mercury in them and other things, so it's not even talking about the products. Doug was just talking about the actual cartridges and then the battery that heats them up, how hot does it make them, and then if you I still use them though myself personally because they're so convenient and discreet and but I definitely do not steer people. That's probably the thing that I feel like is the least safe on the market right now are the cartridges.
Do you think that the carts will change the data on the medical facts already from the leaf? You think because people are smoking and then the metal will affect data, like what I'm trying to. So basically, I see a lot of people smoking it, and I'm not understanding why they stop smoking the leaf and just go straight carts. So I'm trying to figure out, once there's more facts on not smoking carts, do you think, what do you think the outcome will be on people thinking that it's the marijuana doing it, it's the cannabis doing it, It's really just the material being smoked,
Yeah, how do you, yeah, exactly, yeah, like that. Like, how do you think the healthcare system, how do you think the healthcare system is gonna play it up, like, gonna spin it and say, like, yeah, exactly. How is the healthcare system gonna spin it and say, hey, these metals aren't just derived from just the carts. No, it's deeply rooted in the actual cannabis. You know what I'm saying? Like, whether it is grown properly or not, like these health scares, if there's a health scare with cards, are going to be the detrimental factor to with cannabis health.
I don't. Yeah, I do. I don't see that happening.
Okay. At all, huh? Not at all.
Nope.
Okay. All right. Say no
I think if the pharmaceutical industry is involved, they're gonna make it ugly.
It's all gonna be about money.
It's all about money.
Yep.
And people know people. And that's why we're always gonna have it out for a long time.
Hi guys. So I just wanted to bring up one point with when we talked about vaping. Vaping has a lot of benefits to it. When we say vaping, it isn't always necessarily in the car.
Absolutely.
And you get more of a benefit. What I found is, yes, we vape cannabis, and you mix it in with other herbs. And when you're vaping and you set it at certain temperatures, and you're getting other benefits from it. And then on the part of consumption, when we're telling beginners
sometimes if that happens, we can suggest if there's too much THC delivery too quickly and they do feel uncomfortable with the psychoactive effects, we can suggest sometimes just adding a little bit more straight CBD. It'll just settle that down a little bit, because when you even have something as a tincture, which is a 20-to-1, where you have 20 parts of the CBD and 1 part of the THC, which obviously the CBD will cancel out the THC effects, so people can use that during the day for pain management and so on. We say, well, if you have too much THC, you can have a little bit more CBD to calm the effects down.
And if you didn't have CBD, you could rely on like a pepper. Pepper brings you down.
Yep.
Yes,
That's
yeah.
what I'm
Peppercorns.
Because if people are at home and you don't have CBD, you don't want to automatically run and call an ambulance. So
No.
if you got hot pepper or fresh ground peppers, some say smell it, some say chew on it.
Peppercorns.
Chew on it. There are
Yeah.
some people.
Chew on
Chew
pepper.
on it.
Chew on
Yeah,
peppercorns.
that'll
And
bring it down.
hydration. You have to really
Hydration
increase
is a big help.
hydration. Will help a lot. And eating something often will help.
You can use lemon rind too. You can chew it, and limonene will modulate.
I was just trying to get ideas out there for everyone.
Well,
to know
thank
what-
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
That
I
you
didn't
don't
know
have to
about
run
the
out and buy
chewing on the
CBD.
lemon rind. That's good
Yeah,
to know.
it helps.
Dr. Dustin.
People say, oh, THC, you have to worry about this psychiatric effect, but like Dr. Uma said, also with CBD, we have an effect too, because it gives you that calm and like the relaxed thing there. So with me, I have anxiety too, but I know having too much CBD with me, I feel like I'm off. The next day, if I have too much CBD, like it's like I'm drunk or something, like I'm kind of, my vision's kind of blurry. And have you seen that with other patients? And if so, other natural remedies to convert that? I just drink a lot of water and I know my doses with CBD now, but what do you guys recommend?
I've had a few patients say the same thing. I can't do too much CBD, it starts to wig me out. And that's when I talk about introducing a little bit more of a difference in the ratio to bring up the THC. And even adding, getting products that have different cannabinoids in them, or strains in them, so they can also kind of smooth out where your well-being is.
Oh, how you feel?
Yeah. No, there's a substantial population of people who, if they use too much CBD or use it too frequently, get irritable. And, or that's how it's described in the literature anyway.
It's the same thing, so like it's going to be interesting later, the researchers doing studies on other ways besides, we always know, okay, too much CBD, THC, that's going to burn you. Too much CBD, CBD, we always know that, but like you said, the pepper, the other natural remedies, other herbs that we mix, because we know when we're making topicals, we mix other herbs in. But what's going to get that down effect automatic, or what's going to get rid of that effect? And it's experiment, this is new, like you guys said, I know I only drink water, that's one thing you could suggest to CBD.
Right, yeah, I don't know of any other, when people feel sort of hungover from using too much CBD. We've definitely heard that. And right, but I don't know whereas too much THC you can counteract with pepper, that sort of thing. Like, I don't know. But I'll look into it.
Can I jump in and add to that?
Please?
Because I found that I use a vape pen, the CBD, I can very slowly modulate, just like especially driving in the roads, because people are a little bit aggressive out there.
It's Massachusetts, right?
Because everywhere I go, they go like that. So I found that when that happens, and I just want to you know what, I don't want to get sucked into that aggravation, just take out the little vape pen, and take 2 drags on it, and all of a sudden it's perfect. It doesn't last too long, so it doesn't hold like you're taking it ingesting sublingually. It doesn't hold like you're saying too much. So it's something to look at. It's vape, just CBD only, no THC.
He has a question.
Oh, me? Okay. I wanted to ask, because I have kind of like a morning regimen, afternoon regimen, and night regimen, and I wanted to kind of 2-part question. Is there such thing as too much? And also,
Too much what?
having like a morning regimen where you feel like you need a wake up call, and like an afternoon regimen, which I was kind of really wanting to go to, which was, how do you feel about taking, you know, a THC or CBD before going to the gym and like going to lift and play basketball and stuff like that? Because I feel like it actually kind of helps me. Like maybe that may be a mental thing, but I'm just wanting to kind of ask from professionals like you guys to see.
I would gauge it on any other modality. If it's enhancing your life in your daily living activities in a positive way, it's not too much. And because it's an herb, it's plant-based, you know, according to everybody's individual endocannabinoid system, that may be what your body requires or what brings you to a nice homeostatic balance.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, is it working well for you? Is there something that you are trying to achieve that you can't, or is there something that?
It's working actually beautiful because I find a nice balance of like.
Keep it up.
Keep it up. I feel like maybe this is too much where you have a morning and then you have like an after gym and then maybe a night. So
No way.
These are,
It's too much if it feels like too much.
no,
for you.
It feels actually perfect.
Then great.
You got it. You got the sweet spot.
That's great.
Right, so you guys don't think that it affects any negatively any way to like perform better at the gym? Like, so instead of you know, I know some people that like to smoke before they, you know, a pre-workout, basically like a pre-workout.
Yeah, a lot of people
You
do.
know,
That's me.
those are the things that
He's got the
is
muscles,
hard
I
to
know.
explain, you know.
If you found that it works for you, then
Yeah.
then keep it up. Yeah, totally.
We don't have any data yet on like what is how much do you use oxygen more efficiently after you consume CBD, but like probably.
So I don't know if you guys, I don't know where I read this because I read all the everything everywhere. I read a study somewhere where they're now theorizing and they're looking into that actually a runner's high is actually a flooding of your brain with anandamide, and that's why when people like I'm the same way. I mean I haven't ran like I used to, but I used to run half marathons, and I would bring a little dab pen. We didn't have these cool big cartridges then. I'd bring a little dab pen with me, and I would actually dab while I was running, and it would give me that sort of mental, whatever it is. It was the runner's high, and you know you get like that hill that you just don't think you can get to. One little hit, off and running I go, and it worked. And so that's where it's like they're finally zero. So they know THC is very similar to anandamide. If anandamide is the runner's high,
Dopamine, right.
then that's where it works really well for many people. I always feel like performance enhancer. You know, give me the eye of tiger exercise.
I want to know what you're using.
Might be a little too much information. That's on your playlist.
Something to what you were saying, you know, what I've known is that, you know, the less plant matter that's actually in the material, the better in regards to not feeling sluggish. That's ultimately what it is. You have to build up your lung, such as it is a bronchodilator. It does increase your blood pressure. You have to increase your blood pressure. Don't work out by doing it, of course. But other than that, like, it's honestly it's a plant material. That's why you can vaporize it using stuff like Cannabis or your Ice Extreme Power Q. You're actually getting around some of these stuff, especially whenever you vaporize it at like 360s, 436 degrees Fahrenheit. You can look stuff up. Go Google terpene chart and it'll show you right there exactly what you're getting. As she was trying to say earlier, you can actually get down exactly what you're trying to get at. And there are certain terpenes and cannabinoid combinations that actually do help you with working out and things such as pain.
I'm sorry. Can you explain what you just said about
The plant material.
the more plant material, the more sluggish? Are you talking about like full spectrum, or are you just talking about literal plant material?
Let's say, for example, I don't ever condone to distillate personally as somebody that's actually helped people with cannabis. Like, as a caregiver, full spectrum is always the way. You don't know what your person has an issue with. You don't know what cannabinoids you need. Let the cannabis decide that.
Yep.
Go full spectrum.
Yep.
Live rosin or rosin where it's pressed out has a little bit of plant matter in it, but it's less than what it would be. Okay. The other way is that's where solvent extraction, like you were mentioning earlier, that gets expensive. Talking about ice water melt hash and all this beautiful artisan type of stuff. But that's really good stuff.
gonna expand on what he said, because he is right. Except if you're looking to go to sleep, vaporizing, rosin, that ain't gonna do it. Plant matter, puts you to bed. So
And that's,
whatever, yeah,
that's
whatever it is,
because-
I can hit the vaporizer all day.
And the reason is.
I'll just stay up all night.
Yeah, the reason is because THC converts into CBN after it.
Yeah, so it is a CBN, yeah.
Yeah, the CBN is what makes you want to sleep, and that's why when you burn it at 3,000 degrees, we get lighter rather than 400 something degrees. We get more CBN. So.
Yeah, but smoking, combusting versus vaporizing does make some people more tired, and it does make the cannabis work differently. But if somebody's going to vape that flower or smoke that flower, it's not always.
It's
People
also about the strain that you're using also.
Right, and your own DNA.
And that's where you have to look, if you're exercising, then you're gonna look for the more, and you have to look at your plant profile and break it down from there. And then that's when you're gonna add other things in. So what he's saying is correct, and what you're saying is correct too. So if you're smoking, just like rolling a blunt or a joint, then yes, you need to make sure that you're checking your profile. If you are vaping, then sending it can be a big help. Or if you're making oils, knowing to cook it longer and at maybe a different temperature to bring up the CBN in it, or depending on what you're trying to achieve is what they're saying. So you have to do more. It's not as easy as we just say, okay, well, you have paranoia and you're this, we'll just do this. Everybody's body's different, so we have to learn to adjust on our own and look for the signs on your own. There's enough information out there, you know, just trust in one person. No matter how long they've been a caregiver, you know your body better than anyone. So do the research. There's a lot of information out there, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
I agree 100% on that. That was a fabulous answer. And that's the part of some of the other generations that we do get. They, unfortunately, back in the day, the doctor came to the house, you take 2 of these pills in the morning, I'll be back over to check on you. There was no questions asked, there was no anything, you follow the doctor's orders. But today now, this is Eastern medicine, and it's training them and educating them to, it's an herb. You gotta work with it, you gotta log it, you gotta learn it, and learn how it works in your body. And what it does for you doesn't always do the same thing for your best friend. So it's very individualized.
All right, guys. So we are gonna wrap this panel up. Is there any other questions you guys have for Julie or for Laura or for Doug? Talk to me.
Yeah, thank you. Terpenes, question mark.
Talk a little bit about terpenes and their you know, using them in this.
So
Broad general.
Are you good? Do you know tons about terpenes? Do you want to say that? I feel like. Do you want to?
Oh, no.
With
Go
terpenes,
for it.
we found that, let's say a patient has cancer and you have them on a regimen, and it's been working for a while, then sometimes they kind of hit a roadblock. And we've realized that introducing different terpenes depending on what you're trying to achieve. So terpenes are more than just flavor and scent. They actually are the power plant. So they're like these magical keys. When you find which is working for you for that issue, whether it's anxiety or inflammation,
Definitely. I mean, we know that they have a function in terms of helping the cannabinoids get into the body and maintaining the cannabinoid for a longer time in the body. And one thing we do know is that when people, I mean, I think we're all on the same team about whole plant, full spectrum, that sort of thing, but they've definitely found when they have used a distillate and then added back terpenes, that it's not as efficient a product, it's not as effective a product as it is if the terpenes are the original terpenes, like adding back in to something that's been purified. You can't sort of remake it.
Hold it down for us, Joe.
Should I share the bus?
Yup, share the bus. You're right there.
I want to share the bus with you all. All right, so my name's Joe Dalton. You'll see me up here in a little while. This is the bus. It's loaded with cannabinoids. Terpenes. It's the steering wheel. It
Nice.
modulates the outcome of the cannabinoid profile. That's why now we're learning about cultivars. Different cultivars have different profiles. Those profiles have different terpene profiles. Some are higher in myrcene, some more limonene,
Yep.
linoleuls. All those different profiles steer the outcome. So as this comes out more and more, we're all going to learn that, well, that if we know it's definitely that, most people call them strains, but they're cultivars, and they know what that cultivar is, that works for me because my body's different than hers, right? Now that, I might find another thing that's great for daytime and I need to be clear-headed, but I need to sleep at night because I'm in my mid-50s and I don't sleep as well as I used to. I could sleep till 2 in the afternoon once upon a time, not anymore. But this cultivar here, because of the profile of the cannabinoids and also the terpenes, give me the result I'm looking for. Similar to going to the store to get something off the shelf. That works for this works for that.
Yep.
Same thing. So that's the bus.
Thank you.
Guys, if
That's
we're
helpful.
concluded on the bus, okay? Our next segment will be social justice with Goldie Piff. When we leave Gardner, we have here in the house, we have Isaac in the house, and Karima, Risk G. Gordon Dorsey, please step up. It is time. Guys, please, round of applause for this beautiful pair. Please.
Beer, I haven't met you, right?
I'm all over Facebook sometimes. Other than say avoid it altogether.
But you want to sit in here or something?
I'm good on the end.
Bring my own chair? This is bring my own chair?
No, I got you.
Okay,
Oh, look, G.
Smells like weed over here, like.
You sit in the Amos chair.
Oh, okay. Ah.
Could be. That's what you make it.
Hello everyone, my name is Gordon Dorston. I'm the third co-founder of the Green Torch. So our panel is about social justice and economic empowerment as well. We'll add a little bit of that into it. So from the left, we can go out and introduction of our brothers as questions.
Hi, my name is Peter Bernard. I'm the Executive Director of Massachusetts Grower Advocacy Council. We advocate for all things cultivation and manufacturing, and anything that's good for it.
My name is Isaac Villarreal. I'm the head of MEC, Massachusetts Empowerment Coalition, trying to bring together everybody hurt by the prohibition so that we can put our voices together and hopefully try to push for things.
I'm Goldie, and I'm the co-founder of the CGA, which brings together minority businesses into the cannabis industry, and also starting Village PIF with my daughter Almani.
So I'm Monique, co-founder of Urban Cannabis Growers Association, and we're founding Village Pit Cooperative, so.
Hi, I'm Karina Risk. I'm the founder of Cafe Bear, a cannabis coffee house startup with female minority run out in East Hampton. Been working really hard to make that a reality and run with the regulations. And I temporarily had to put on hold, and in the meantime, I've done the CAPO for chairwoman of the state's first social consumption ballot committee. And most recently, while I'm working as an advocate, I'm also the director of operations for the Verb Herb, a mom and pop cannabis adult use retail store in East Hampton.
My name is Anna Mead. I'm at the moment the executive director of Cannabis on Cape Cod. We are there to promote and foster craft cannabis on Cape Cod and keeping things local and organic.
All right, great. Large crew, great panelists over there. So my first question, so we'll just get right into it. What does social justice mean to you, and how does it impact our communities?
What social justice means to me is seeing all the friends I've had over the years since I sold that first dime bag in 1981 who managed to get in trouble when I didn't, and have had jobs kept from them just because they got bagged with a couple of bones in their pocket, or somebody loses their job because they had a couple of joints over the weekend. To me, social justice is seeing those records expunged, and seeing them have an opportunity in the industry that they were part of to begin with.
I absolutely agree. Social justice for me is proper distribution of wealth, fair distribution of wealth and equity among the people that have actually been impacted by this prohibition. I believe that cannabis, in regards to like the industry, is completely different from any other industry, mainly because it has everything to do with anything that we touch. For the most part, you can make CPUs out of hemp, so, and even anything that's made out of plastic. So it affects all industries, and most importantly, the people that have been hurt by it need to actually have,
Well, I think it all goes back to the communities, and I think that's where it started, and hopefully we bring it to an end through our communities and just gathering people from regular everyday people to speak up and count on each other for doing the right things.
Social justice to me means equality, equity. So when we're talking about the cannabis industry, I'm thinking basically ownership. I think about just restorative justice. I mean, reclaiming land, black ownership, minority ownership, ownership for those most marginalized. The CCCs say the LGBT community, those differently abled, well, the disabled population, I like to say those differently abled, but often businesses forget about those differently abled, and those differently abled usually aren't owners of businesses, and that's why we went about going about doing this as a cooperative, because it's about community and it's about empowering those that are the most marginalized and allowing them to have ownership and entering in this industry.
In addition to all those great things everyone's mentioned before me, I believe social justice is a lens through which we measure the moral authority and the integrity of our communities and society. I think we need to pay heed to the collective guilt and consciousness, the history, in particular with cannabis, against which many groups were persecuted. And I think we need to take that into account at a community level when we want to rectify those wrongs and moving forward.
Hi. I paint a very broad brush on social justice. I think what was a recent statistic that came out in Boston is that African Americans have 46 cents of wealth versus white people having $246. And I think, what?
We have $8.
Oh, $8 versus $240.
275.
Yeah.
Yeah, 25,000.
It was just so startling. And that, it's like, how has that been? This is yet another generational transfer of wealth.
you know, and people are going to make these huge fortunes. And it needs to be, you know, we need to move women and people of color and differently abled people forward, because that's what Massachusetts voted on.
Great. So with all those issues and everything, what do you think Massachusetts is doing to currently create a fair market, if they're doing anything?
You asked the right person to get started on that. Little to nothing, I think, is what the state is doing. They created economic empowerment and social equity, but at the end of the day, what does that really give you aside from getting put at the top of the pile when you put in your application? It doesn't give you the kind of help you might otherwise need. And Goldie, doing the cooperative, that's really important to economic empowerment and social equity, because finances. I mean, a lot of times people will say to me, oh, it's so unfair, I can't get in, I need millions of dollars. Okay, I'm going to lay something out there that some people might not want to hear. If you're going to cultivate, you've got to get the building, that's going to cost you something. Then you got to buy all the lights, that's going to cost you something. Then you get all the nutrients and all the other odds and ends to get everything turned on. Then you got to pay the electricity for 4 or 5 months and the rent for God knows how long before you even get to finish your application. You might have been paying rent. That's all going to take some capital, and that's why cooperative work is the way to go, because you can pool your resources, and you get different people with different talents. You get some guys that will have a good head for business, but would kill a cactus. And then you got other people that could grow the most beautiful weed in the world in a barrel of diesel fuel. And you get people like that together, working together. That is how. But if you're going to try to do it by yourself, good luck. You better rob a bank and then watch that money.
As it dwindles away. I have to completely agree. There's just so many different resources that were needed. In the material, it did say that they're going to offer technical assistance. I don't even know what really that defines to, because I haven't received anything and nobody else has either. I mean, even going from there, hiring an architect, something so simple, most don't even know about that. You're going to have to hire an architect, get a blueprint. That's a whole nother, $10,000, $5,000, whatever, maybe you know a guy. But at the end of the day, it's pulling together the resources, and no, they haven't done anything. And most importantly, they haven't done nothing to incentivize anybody. They don't want to get involved in the municipalities, but they're willing to take the money from the municipalities.
Absolutely.
So in my eyes, okay, well then do something with the money. Incentivize the municipalities to work with EE and SE people, or anything to that effect. Even lawyers, even real estate people, even other services that you know we're going to have to use. They have plenty of people to be able to help us with. They just, I don't know.
This is a very, very stressful, touchy situation. With the EECs, I will say, I kind of go a little bit different. I don't think that you have to start out with money. It makes your life easier, absolutely. But you only get so far if you don't have the money. It's not impossible. And one thing that we're encouraging, and what I've been doing, is reaching out to different schools, whether it's Harvard, Northeastern, whatever university or college is near you, and tell them what you're trying to do. A lot of these people are very excited to help. This is why we took the name Village PIF, because nothing happens without a village. And so I know I can't take all the weight on myself, so we reach out into the community. But as far as the state taking care of us, no. People think when you have this EEC, it makes it an easy walk. Doesn't change my skin color when I'm walking into a municipality that's been, an all-white town for 75 years and everybody knows each other, and here comes this out-of-towner with locks in her head, and she speaks with accent, so they already have things formulated. So it doesn't make it any easier. So I kind of wish people would stop saying that. The state, we have to fight for everything, and while not just the monetary value, we kind of have the responsibility, like we're all doing here now, is educating our communities so that we can open a business. Because if the communities that we live in aren't even accepting us, then how do you expect us to be able to go into another community? Everyone's always, well, why here? Why not go somewhere else? We're gonna be in everyone's community sooner or later. Pick the best and work with it.
I would say there's no help, like, Massachusetts wants to say they're ahead in leading this equity, the head in this application and, you know, going forward, but it's, like everyone else said, it's more than just saying, giving this certificate and saying you're priority, because we're not priority. Just because you said a priority doesn't make us priority. We're dealing with multiple because we're out here in the community educating other people on this and working with other minority businesses and Black businesses, trying to lift them up and trying to keep each other like, oh, keep pushing on, don't give up this fight, basically. We see the struggle, and we see that this person has an economic empowerment certificate, and yet there's two big businesses that move in on the side of this business, and yet now this big business is gonna get priority over this economic empowerment certificate. But we just said we get priority, right? That's not real. Municipalities are taking over and they're running with this, and the CCCs aren't controlling it. Yeah, that's basically what it is.
I think it could be summarized for the state that it's too little, too late. I think I will start by saying the state, I think, was well-intentioned or is well-intentioned, at least in terms of the regulations are very aspirational. We're one of the leaders in the country, and I think it was great that Commissioner Shalene Title was appointed, at least as someone with a lens and a point of view, articulating and carrying that perspective at those levels of conversation. However, I think that's pretty much where it stops, and whether it's the technical assistance, whether it's the financial assistance, whether it's the templates and access to the professionals, these have all been sorely lacking, and unfortunately, with that gap comes a distinct disadvantage for all of the economic empowerment folks getting out of, succeeding out of the gate. One last thing I'll just leave on too is I think there's a real responsibility to the state to educate the municipalities, because I can speak for my own municipality. While people understand equity and they believe generally it's a good thing, they are completely lost with the 6-point economic empowerment program and the social equity program. I think there needs to be a ton of information explained to both the municipality and to the communities as to how we exactly help these folks going forward. I think we're going to talk about that a little later.
Yeah, I think not only has the CCC done absolutely nothing, they've delayed what they said they were gonna do. So, it's like, oh yeah, let's give you guys a 2-week head start, okay? But who thought that was gonna work, really? And then they've delayed the social equity rollout twice. So, we still have no education campaigns, and all the people who spent a lot of time and a lot of money to put packages together have to do it again. So, they basically wasted our time. The good news is they've got some bad national press, they had some listening sessions, and Shalene Title has now come out with the 6-point social equity fairness program.
Which is supposed to help get the ECs through a little bit easier.
Right.
But
so
seems to be more
they've designed a system that does not work for us, and
well, and that leads into my next question. What are some of the solutions? What can Massachusetts, the regulators do, and our communities can do to make sure that this is a fair marketplace for all diverse?
Well, the regulators can get up the municipalities' asses and enforce Chapter 94G, Section 3, Paragraph D, for the host community agreements.
Absolutely.
And for those of you who don't know, the Mass Grower Advocacy Council is about to sue the Cannabis Control Commission. We've been going through legal action with them since October, because I think that's one of the most hugest barriers of all. There's ways to get around the money problems, but like you said,
it's that
you walk into an all-white town council meeting in some little town someplace, in a room full of people that have already got kind of a stigma about cannabis itself. It's just, and then when they can get past that, you've got the deep pockets that have come to town promising a pony. And a little cart for the pony to pull. And a nice lolly for you to lick while you're taking your pony ride. And if you don't want to give them a pony too, sorry, you don't get to play.
Absolutely.
So if we can get the regulators in the state to tell the municipalities, hey, you know, the law's pretty clear, you can only take 3%. Cut this nonsense with the extra stuff. That would help level the playing field a lot.
Would be a huge step up.
Yeah. Well, you already talked about host agreements, so I would say I'd go back to resources and trying to actually, push for the CCC to actually try to incentivize somebody. I keep going back to that, and I think it's very important. I mean, there's literally nothing to actually say, hey, come work with EE, come work with SE at the end of the day. So, yeah.
I feel as if they need to make it mandatory that every town or city takes a certain amount of EEC holders. We only have a handful of us to begin with, but everyone, because you see some towns just completely ignoring it and not allowing the EECs in. That's one issue. Then the other issue that we have is a lot of these people that are in these town halls and city halls have been connected forever. So when homeboy that comes around that used to work here has these connects, and I don't have that advantage because I hadn't been a person that was in City Hall, and he might get a little bit of favoritism because of who he was. That's not cool. And I think the CCC needs more representation. Like, they need to be, I know they say they can't be all over the state. You're taking money from all over the state. We need people from the CCC or a representative that we can go to when we're working in, let's say, the South Coast, or even break it down even more so and just say with every town you could assign, a few people that are there as overseers or a mediator between us and town hall, these mayors, these city councils. Yes?
I just have a question. I'm wondering if you guys feel like you have an ally
No.
at the CCC.
Oh, at the CCC? I was being a smart ass saying no first. But Shailene, Shailene's cool, but we have to understand we can't put all the weight on Shailene. She's Wonder Woman, but she can't do it all, and we can't trust it in there. The CCC, they can't do everything. It's a push from all of us. I don't even know where, but I know it's really broken, and I can tell you as an EEC certificate holder, we're fighting a losing battle, letting these big businesses come in. And I'll even speak on our parts, because we have some EEC holders that are getting in and making deals. When he's talking about that pony and all that other good stuff, well, same thing happens with this money issue. So we might not have the money to start up, but when we have these out-of-town companies coming to us and, well, I'll give you $20 million, you sign here, you're the owner, you make no decisions, you just keep it on the
Very
road,
dangerous co-ops.
So we have that going on, and when you're stuck in a position where you feel like you have no power, you have no money, and I have this certificate, is it gonna go somewhere? So some people are making informed, non-informed decisions. And then the other part is, I think that the municipalities or towns should be saying that if you're an EEC holder, no, you can't sell out. You're not gonna sell to a big Canadian company or any other company. If that's the case and you're ready to go out, maybe we can work something where we can replace it with another person. There's enough wealth that's gonna go around in this that we have to think bigger than just ourselves.
I would say just the startup funds. Boston was talking about doing low-cost grants, or low-rate grants or something like that. But I think that should be a start. And of course, we're out here, these people, everyone starting a business is already working another job or in school taking care of their families, but yet have to constantly out in the community advocating and destigmatizing cannabis and educating people on that it's bigger than, just us being able to smoke weed, that this is bringing job opportunities in, and not just, working at a dispensary, Just starting this business, we need lawyers, we need engineers, we need everything, So basically connecting us and doing the work for us. This is equity, meaning They should have, because of the ones that are getting in and have these HCAs already, it's because of they're connected. We're not connected, we're community people. So if it was about equity, they would be out here doing this work for us, so we're not doing double times, you know what I mean? So that's one thing. And then another thing, I know it doesn't have to do with helping our business, but I feel it's, look, we're late on all this. They brought up all this, and now you're talking about equity. You're too late. The recreational cannabis is allowed now, right? But yet people are still getting locked up for this. You know what I mean? Expungement needs to be a thing. And we could be hiring people to go to the prisons now and start getting them ready and educating them, like, oh, when you come out, we're gonna set you up with a job automatically. That's what it should be. We know that, especially being Black or Hispanic, being a person of color with this economic empowerment certificate, those people with that big money are coming to you. You know what I mean? Coming to you. Sign this. Keep it on the low. It's gonna look like it's in your name. You know what I mean? But no, they have all the power. Toke was one of them. They're saying they take 70% of your income. So, and then basically when you're ready to sell, they get first dibs on that. And I stand with my mom. We're economic empowerment certificate holders, or if you're a social equity holder, you shouldn't be allowed to sell yours. You shouldn't be allowed. This is about growth for our community. If you weren't for this, then you should never apply for it, you know? Because you shouldn't be able to just get that money, get in, start your business, and then have the big man come in and give you that big chunk of money, and then it messes up everything. Because we know when a Black person owns a business, they usually hire Black people. When a disabled person owns a business, they're gonna hire people that are differently able. Veterans. We look out for our kind. And like you said, the gap is serious, so this is a major time to change this. The ancillary checks, amazing, and they need to be educating people on this, not us doing this. People are very wary about the cannabis industry, especially being a person of color and going to jail over this, and you know, having family members and still your grandparents being against, oh, it's illegal, but your grandparents are not with this. So yeah, just education.
Oh, he wanted to
I had one thing that, I'm so sorry, I had a story. Basically, whenever I was going for, I'm an economic empowerment person myself. Whenever I was actually going out there and trying to do all this, I had several people approach me, tons of money, all this stuff like that. Usually it was either Canadian-based or, you know, whatever it may be. And there was even one time where there was a co-op where they offered the 60/40. At first it sounded awesome. We're like, oh my God. And they're like, oh yeah, we'll take care of everything. All you gotta do is sign here. We'll grow it for you. We'll market it for you. We'll do everything. You just literally sign here. Later on, you find out that they're actually doing that on purpose to be able to push you out later because they can prove you haven't actually been working with the company. So there's a lot of little loopholes that they try to push you out on, even going further from there. The 51% minority thing, where 51% of the owners actually have to, you know, be minority. They can get around that by actually, you know, getting their own minorities involved. It doesn't have to be somebody that's been affected by prohibition. It could just be anybody that has even a little bit of minority within them. So, and so y'all know, in case anybody doesn't know, as it stands, 70.2% of the industry is owned by Caucasian white males, 6.6 for Black, 5.5 for Black people, 6.6 for Hispanics, 1% for Asian, and I don't even know where women stand, Native Americans, disabled, vets, service disabled veteran-owned, you know, businesses. Here you go. Sorry.
I think this is an issue that we really need to continue pushing. I think it was our governor who said we need to walk before we run, and there was so much emphasis by the lobbyists and some of the senior lawmakers and officials to just get the red market. Let's just worry about that and worry about all these other details. And in the meantime, I think all of us, economic empowerment, people of color, women, veteran, all the small local businesses were getting pushed to the wayside. I think the host community agreements are prohibitively expensive, as mentioned before. When I negotiated with my community, and they had, I should say, a very progressive attitude, I was just told, sorry, we're going to go with a 3%, and you can take it if you want it, you know. Certainly, I could not have been in a position to have tens of thousands of dollars due at signing milestones and special permitting, and I think that's frankly illegal and should be deprioritized. I think we need to push for that and continue at the state level, and also empower the CCC through our legislature to be to vet host community agreements, because that's a gateway. I think it's really important to also circulate, there's ways we can be creative that don't cost money, that we can empower people who don't have money to apply for these businesses. For example, doing your own financial statement, having a template that is circulated in a small group, having business plans, having some basic security education. These are all documents that we have to produce and we can customize, and I think having people start to understand and have access to those documents is something we need to make an effort at as well. Another really important thing, and this is particularly a passion of mine also, is with local politics as well. I think we really need to push equity ordinances. Somerville had a great coup with their equity 1-to-1 ordinance. I know in my community in East Hampton, unfortunately, it's something that when we were trying to walk, not run, that equity got pushed to the wayside, so we're still pushing on it, and we've just pushed through an equity ordinance for a planning board. But I think each and every one of us needs to continue to put that pressure on the local level. And also, it hasn't been mentioned yet, but 2019 is a local election year. Mayor, city councilors, planning board, this is where you have power. And I would really encourage folks to go out there at these election outreach events in our community, ask each and every candidate what their position is, and whether or not on the record they support equity candidates, and push for specifics, and start getting the dialogue so that your community is discussing it. There's so much that can be done on this issue.
I just want to say Boston has a 2-to-1. Boston
Yes,
has a
yes.
2-to-1, so push it. We could even say 3-to-1, do
Yes.
whatever. And also, like you said, election time's coming, so you can start emailing them, just ask them a question about cannabis. See if they respond to you. If they don't respond to you, don't vote for them.
Yeah, I think that the CCC has provided absolutely zero leadership, and I think by their leadership of, oh yeah, we're not gonna watch the municipalities, so that's let the municipalities know that they can do whatever they want. Be it like ignore an APRA permit, no, we're just not calling you back for 3 weeks or 3 months or whatever. So there's a lot of different ways that they can play the game by not having leadership. I've been a regulator on the federal, state, and local level on both sides of the desk, and never in my entire experience with a regulator have I been subjected to commercials against my industry on my regulatory website. They are actively putting up and advertising that this is drug dealers and addiction, and all of us are selling a wellness product. You know, all of us, like the state of Illinois, you can swap your opioid card out for a marijuana prescription. And here, the Massachusetts is just like, oh, you have to be careful of addiction. And so they have all these people who are against the industry on the regulatory commission. And that's holding, Oklahoma had 1,500 businesses. Actually, I think they're up to 3,000 now. Businesses licensed in 8 months. 8 months from start of the law to 1,500 businesses. Is it gonna be crazy? Yes. Are people gonna go down? Yes. Do all these people have an opportunity? Yes. Why? The governors had a niece who was healed by cannabis medicine. So it's leadership, it's believing in the industry. And I think that is, we still have to focus on that ball. Yes, we can talk about all the little crumbs they're trying to throw us, but when we get leadership on our state level, it's going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah. So you guys have talked a lot about the current status of what large companies are doing, coming in, and secret guys coming in and asking, getting 70% on the 30. What can we do as a community, locally, or as consumers to ensure that these large businesses don't come in here, and that we don't have any of our smaller businesses sell out to the larger businesses? Like you said, making sure that economic empowerment applicants don't sell to anybody, sell their business to anybody.
Municipalities have control.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So
Yeah,
it's all about advocating and lobbying.
The municipalities have the control over it. What we can do as a community to try to stump some of that is, like you were talking about earlier, with people trying to buy up bits and pieces of it and having all the control. There are a couple of companies out there that are doing that, and they're buying up. They found a nice little loophole. If you own less than 10% of the cannabis business, you don't have to be listed on the license, and you're not listed on the license. So if I buy 9.5% of your license, I'm just an investor. I'm Joe Blow. The state doesn't need to know I exist. At the same time, I'm going to loan you $1.5 million at 20% interest, and I'm going to take 70% of your income until the note is paid off. And what happens is people get so desperate and frustrated with trying to raise what they need to raise, and finding out all these things they didn't know they were going to have to pay for and solve, that they'll get sucked into that. And in this way, these companies are being so good at this that they put out a prospectus, which is something that talks about a stock or a portfolio, that brags about how they have control over 12 different licenses in the Commonwealth, retail licenses. And they don't. And they also want to get you into an agreement to buy their stuff. As business people, you have to boycott that. Me personally, I would rather abandon my dream and go punch a time clock with somebody than to pretend that I achieved my dream, because I'm going to be punching a time clock with somebody. Someday I might own it. To keep people from selling it, you have to incentivize. You could try to regulate that, or you could try to legislate that, but it's better to incentivize the certificate holder to just keep it.
One thing that I came across trying to do MEC was something that I came across was that no matter what we do, the investors ultimately are not the issue, but they can be an issue, a massive issue. First of all, there's not enough minority investors to begin with, right? So it's hard to even try to find an investor that would be, in a cadence to what you're trying to do with social justice or whatever it may be. So like, I'm sorry, my mind just went blank. Happens, right? Basically, what was I talking about? Oh man, it just, here you go.
It'll come back.
It will, and I want to be like, oh!
So now you just did it to me. No, sorry. Okay. In part he did, but let me see if I can refocus here. So what you can do as a community is hold yourself responsible. Know about the local politics. Be involved. When we're saying we're having these meetings, come and ask the hard questions. Come and really get involved. Show your support. Tell your city or town legislators just exactly what you expect of them. Put it in writing. When I first started this journey, everyone kept saying that. I'm like, oh, I'm not wanting to be out in the community. I don't want to be seen. I want to keep a low profile. You don't have that luxury in this, and so it has me out harassing everyone to remember to register to vote, know where your politicians stand on everything that concerns you, and not just in the cannabis world, but everything. And I think it would make a huge difference just by everyone being present.
Okay, I'm so sorry for forgetting. Basically, we came up with the idea that you can't really get around the investor issue without the CCC or somebody trying to get involved and actually trying to kind of interview or trying to go and look who actually is trying to invest into this situation, trying to keep Massachusetts money, you know what I'm saying? So a way to do that would potentially be like an interdependency fund or some sort of fund where investors are able to go to and approach that they know is a secure, trusted fund, and they know on the other side of that we have EE and SE people and other people that were hurt by prohibition actually can approach that fund and of course, put in for an application to be able to receive some money out of that for a resource. This is a possibility to make sure that we're keeping Massachusetts money. It's just an idea. Yeah, sorry.
I got an idea.
Oh, you want to go?
If we went by
No, go
share,
ahead.
because we're talking about
Go ahead.
the funding, the money, the foreign investors coming in. So we have a problem, we're reacting to it now, right? We need to provide, I think, solutions. you have all these recs coming online, there's a lot of tax money that's gonna come in. What if we could get them to take a small portion of that and create the fund? That fund would have some handcuffs on it that you can't allow any foreign investors to come in. And then the profits from your business go back to refinance and repay that fund. So it's really a loan, no interest, but the money goes back after you're up and running. Because our biggest problem is the do-re-mi. That's what's slowing everything down. Because with money you have power. And with that you have influence. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Actually, Kim Jamie for Boston, when I was city councilman, that's one of her recommendations on her ordinance was to make it so some of that 3%, because what is that 3% gonna go to? We're all like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
I got some sad news on tax projections in
Yeah.
Massachusetts. Our wonderful legislators have grossly overestimated how much we were going to take in taxes. I saw the sales figures for the first 16 weeks since the retail opened. $54.4 million in sales, which works out to about $9.25 million in sales taxes for the state at their 17%. Not counting the 3% the municipalities get.
Okay.
They expected 2 or 3 times that, and they've already figured it into the budget. So yes, it's a great idea to take some of that tax money and stick it in the fund. But first we have to get these knuckleheads to stop spending it before we get it and counting the chickens before they're hatched.
Yeah.
So once we can get past that and they have realistic expectation of what revenue is going to be.
It's an effect of their poor decisions in licensing. This woman said that there was another state within X amount of months, a very short window, they're up and running, we have everybody get to business. They dragged their feet, they took their time, they're all getting paychecks, and here we are, 3 years later. And you only got a small handful open. That is the problem. So they made a poor decision, they estimated they'd have 65 million, but they dragged their feet on getting those licenses out so that we, entrepreneurs, could start going. And large investors would come in, and then big ag would come in as well. That's why they have the problem they have today. So now they're eating it.
I know people that, when EE first came out, they were already thinking about like flipping their houses, and eventually they did, just so they can afford to start going through the process. And then, of course, the process is being extended out, so it's just, there's no way around it. It's just bad.
So is it too late to fix for Massachusetts?
No, it's never too late to fix things. It could be a pain in the ass, it'll take a while.
That's the only Kevin.
Well, yeah, it didn't start, so, yeah. Well, she was asking to do just what you said, but if they overestimated on the price, that sets us where, so.
Retail out right now. As more cultivators are licensed, then more money is going to be.
She's saying it's because of the grow hasn't started, it's only retail yet, so as more cultivation starts, more licenses will be out. And the social equity, the social consumption licenses, those will bring things, and then the ancillary businesses as well will open this up wider. So they're just saying that each one of those businesses, I don't know, we'll see, because we don't know how many ancillary businesses will be, so how much will their input be in this industry, who knows. But so when it comes to that, and I would just say, going to these community meetings, a lot of, they pop up, like, literally you'll find out, and it's like, you find out that day I'm at work, and then it's like, oh shit, it's tonight. Try to make it there, even though you're gonna be tired, because a lot of the times they have that one person in the community or says they're from there, and that's that one face that's representing that big business, and their interest isn't for the community, and you wanna ask them those questions. Who are you hiring? How many employees will you have? What percentage will be this? What percentage will be that? What are you offering to pay them? What benefits? What nonprofit? Who are you giving to in the community? What's your business's goals? And then once you find out that that business is actually for the community and it's not a big business, then be messaging your city councilman and show up at the town meetings and
I'll start with I would agree with what Peter said about incentivizing people to stay in the state versus selling out. I think we have to be really careful to restrict businesses from eventually reaping a return on their investment, just like any other business. And if we're not careful, I fear that we might say, hey, these minority licenses or economic empowerment folks can't sell, but the white man is fine to sell. And then it's this disproportionate who can get wealth off of their investment. But I think if you flip it around and you incentivize it, perhaps also tying it, as was suggested, to funding as well, there may be ways to term out that you have that commitment at a certain time. Regarding how can we as a community kind of learn more about these businesses, Goldie and Omni mentioned the host community agreements. I think those are really, really important. I think you should, en masse, really, as much as possible, go out and meet those people, find out about the owners. But I really encourage you all to be a little sleuths as well. The CCC, their applications to the CCC and oftentimes to the city, those documents will be posted on public websites you can access, and there's a whole treasure trove of information from bank accounts to ownerships to all sorts of details that don't come out. And I think that's our responsibility to know who's coming into our community. Finally, something I think that no one's mentioned yet, but I think being conscious consumers is really important too, and a lot of that is education. But just as in we buy local and we make conscious consumer choices, we want to also consciously support our local market, and whether that's, you know, PR for businesses like Carolyn's Cannabis that opened up, whether that's saying I'm going to go and actually pay $18 a gram for this local cannabis versus maybe 10 or 12 for the budget, you know, mass cannabis cultivator. Those are all decisions we have, and so I think as the market matures, we become more educated, but also we decide as a community that we care about these values. We need to support that with our dollars.
Hi, I proposed to the CCC that we needed at least 5 community liaisons or ombudsmen, one for social justice, one for medical, one for farmers, one for craft cooperatives. Because the craft cooperatives and the farmers grow the, you know, the more expensive, more medicinal products, and then those people are tied to the local people who are then making product out of that local high quality cannabis. And then it's because we're Cape Cod, we're local, that's what we do. We have health, wellness, and freshness. And out of that, then we can, through the cooperatives, birth all these companies, because the craft cooperatives are the way the smaller local people are gonna hang on. The Walmart weed's gonna be here, it is here. It's in Provincetown, for Christ's sakes. And we don't have a Walmart on the Cape, but we have Walmart weed. So,
basically.
I don't know what to say about that. It's embarrassing.
It's real.
But if we can push for craft cooperatives and have community ombudsmen or liaisons that are representatives from our community on the inside of the CCC to help advocate for our needs. You know, what do we need? We need leadership. What do we need? We need, why are we not connecting up to the cooperative extensions with the farmers? Why is it different? Why, you know, why are we not connected up to the business mentors within the system that already exist? Like, all these different support services already exist within the state, but we're not connected to it. We're way over here because we're illegal or something. Anyway, so to connect with people already in the state to get those services, to have our ombudsman in the CCC so we get our voices heard, and to hang on for dear life for those craft cooperatives and those.
Can I just say something
Please.
because you said that?
Yes.
So we are a Black Farmer Cooperative, and I'm sorry guys, I have to keep closing my eyes because the lights bother me and trigger my speech. But one of the things that our town has done in Rochester, we're farmers. And now all of a sudden you're gonna come out with a zoning saying, well, even though you're a farmer, agricultural farmer, and this is how you got it, your zoning, you don't fit in the zoning area. What are you talking about if you're giving this to a farmer? So it's supposedly to help us, but if we can't use our land and you're zoning us out of our land, and you know, it's just so much red tape that you go through.
So what they say is actually that they don't consider cannabis as an agriculture crop,
Which we
right?
need to change.
So that's one thing we're pushing to change. I actually have the bill in my phone because I want you guys like to hit up your Senate's legislation, hit up everyone, councilman, let them know we want to push for this act. It's the H3519 Act, and it's basically redefining what agriculture is, meaning just saying that hemp and marijuana is considered agriculture as it should be. So if you guys could just push for that, that's one thing. I was gonna say something, but that's what you brought up. And then the second one is, you guys just advocate on, like, on our behalf. As a cannabis business, interested, we're cultivation, so we're gonna be cultivating, so we'll be feeding to everyone else, basically in that way. So we're not gonna have a retail shop or a dispensary, that's not our goal. But the point is, when the people that do have a retail shop or whatever, they can't have a marijuana written on the outside of the building. They can't have pictures of the plant. Well, you know what I mean? It's not gonna show that this is, they're not gonna know, they're not gonna smell cannabis when they come outside. So there's no danger, and we already know, cannabis isn't a danger to kids. It's not, it really isn't. So, but that's what the big worry is.
They'll shoot us down.
That's what the big worry is, but the point is, I'm talking about our buildings, you can't tell that you're selling cannabis in these buildings. So there should be no reason why they should be zoning them the way they are zoning them, which is giving us headaches when there's liquor stores here and there, at that corner, and CVS right there, and that one across from that one, but we can't have that with our businesses. Mind you, then they're worried about population, too much traffic, okay, but if there's cultivation being done here, people aren't going to be coming in there except for the workers, and then if there's retail, we know, all right, who will be here, but we could have a couple things in one location. It doesn't have to be the half-mile buffer, we could work on this, and that's what you guys as consumers could advocate for.
Can I actually, that actually made me think of something too with zoning. I think it's really important as a community that we should proactively look out for monopolies and unique advantages that people are cornering before we even know they're happening. I personally experienced that with, after an 8-month period of working to create a zoning ordinance in my community, a dispensary laid down a thick report, the very last comment of 8 months of comment, and said, this justifies why we need a 500-foot buffer around every retail store and every cultivation facility. And of course, no one had the technical skills to refute that, especially on the spot. I think it's things like that we're going to see that people are quickly taking up, whether it's zoning areas and out zoning other people from buffer zones if you have buffers in between. And I just think we really need to have a healthy dose of skepticism in these conversations and asking people to take their time. Don't make a decision just because, if an oil company put down an environmental report, we wouldn't just take that at face value. So just do your due diligence and make sure you just have a healthy conversation to say, wait, is this really necessary, or is this about a competitive advantage that you're trying to secure and codify in the zoning ordinance?
You got another question? Okay, well, I think we have to look at,
So I wanted to change it up a little bit and talk a little bit more about the social justice. And I feel like there's a lot of people it's facts that, the war on drugs in the 90s affected a lot of the minority communities. Can you talk about how this affected our communities and what we can do moving forward?
okay, we'll start on this end then. I think moving forward, we have to look at specifically, people talk about barriers to entry. We also have to talk about the onus of enforcement. Okay, so on the dispensaries, you have these regulators who come in and do inspections, and you get 30 days of corrective action and all this other stuff, right? So on the social consumption and on delivery, who do you think is going to be enforcing that? That would be the police. Okay, and they're not going to give you 30 days to have corrective action. So we have to look at the things that are being set up, or the way people are being set up. You know, the hippies or the, you know, people of color and people who have traditionally used this medicine and used this plant, who are now just like, they're still being, you know, followed and chased and arrested and all this for, oh, you have a joint in your car, oh, you don't have an open container. And so we really have to keep the pressure on and keep the focus on social justice so that they can't continue to set up these barriers.
I agree. I think the war in the 90s, the drug wars in the 90s, war on drugs, definitely it just ravaged families. And with criminal justice, it was a selective tool to enforce, to compound sentences, to subjugate people and dissent and for political gain. So we see that with broken families. I think also with generational wealth, it's even magnified with each generation, you know, single moms. And I think to that end, that is really why there is this moral impetus that we have to take social equity seriously. That's why women-owned businesses are so important. Oftentimes, you know, studies have been done when women are gaining the money stays more often in the community, more families are taken care of, you know, whether it's the seniors, whether it's the children, nutritional health, so many objective measures are, you know, just raised with that. So I think we really need to look and be mindful and reserve those opportunities. And I think really criminal justice, we need to have a frank discussion. It's coming to a head, it already has been in our country with racism and rioting and law, you know, use of force, deadly force, and I think all of these issues are imperative that we need to be able to have honest dialogues. And finally, I think also the stigma, we're starting to see great gains, but it's still, whether it's the lawmakers or, locally or at the national level, or even just people in our community. My family, when they heard I wanted to go into cannabis, said, don't do it, you know? I'm sorry, you're gonna have heartache, you know? So I think we have to realize and treat it as a professional industry, and also not stigmatize people who use it, whether that's parents or upstanding citizens in the community, whether it's people of color. It does make you one way or another, you know, stigmatized or a lesser person.
I would say, well, we know there was a lot of arrests and mostly, and still today the data still proving it's usually Black people and Hispanic people that are mostly targeted by these drug laws. But, so basically a lot of people, families were ripped apart, you know, people lost homes, there was one family homes, people lost their jobs, people lose scholarships, still to this day people lose scholarships because of this, lose their jobs, housing because of this. So when I look at it, I'm just like, basically just breaking the stigma and realizing when they're trying to put certain laws, like what's the word and who is this law targeting to us? Why are they thinking we have to go about cannabis this way? Why are we still treating cannabis as if it's on the same level as heroin and everything else when it's not, you know? And just the whole reefer madness, like still, weed is legal now, and because we're Village PIF Cooperative, but also we're Urban Cannabis Grow-Up Association. During this process, we realized it was a struggle for Black and Hispanics, especially on the South Coast, trying to do this thing together. So we gathered with other economic holders and just feel support to each other. So we go to different communities supporting other businesses and just rally for you. So point is, they had their ZBA meeting, and it was a perfect example of reefer madness. Her building has no windows. This is Whisk and Jane, no windows. Ventilation gets cleaned before the air goes out, so there's no smell. It's a white, beautiful black rim on the top. They have a silver anchor representing New Bedford. And yet he was like, I'm still worried about the youth. And this is like right over a bridge, I'm worried about the youth and whatever. And this, yeah, the signage and, so, I'm sorry, where was I? Oh, reefer madness. So the point is, he's worried about the youth, this and that. This is a private lounge, adult use only. You're worried about the kids. You can't even tell if this has anything to do with cannabis, so why are you worried about the kids? You know? The kid can't even enter doors into this. And then he went on to say that there's third graders smoking weed. Let's be real.
Third graders on the
Second and third graders, and it's on record, like, you know, so it's just like, stuff like that, we have to break stigmas because this is a healing plant, it's a medicine. Yes, it's not for everyone. We know 11-year-olds don't belong smoking, 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds don't belong smoking. But there's ways to this. I was 14 years old when I started smoking cannabis. I had polyps that were cancerous. I have a blood disorder. I have a connective tissue disorder. I use cannabis medically in many ways. I actually had a hematologist that pushed cannabis on me. I was 90 pounds, unable to eat. So if it wasn't for cannabis, I wouldn't be here. Here I'm 24 years old. Had polyps that were cancerous and sent to Dana-Farber at age 14. I started eating raw cannabis. I started taking oil, CBD, cannabis, full spectrum. My mom breaks it down. We mess with other herbs. So it's like people really got to get educated on this. Stop being so closed-minded. This is opening doors. So, yeah.
Tommy just about summed it up, but I think the biggest damage that the war on drugs has done in our communities, the black community's kind of been scared straight. We move and have been moving in the black market for a long time, but because we know how unfair the judicial system has been to us, a lot of people are afraid to come around and come out in the open and try and do a legit business because they feel as if we're being set up. Plenty of times I hear when I'm going around asking people about getting involved in the co-op, nah sis, you're crazy. You know what they're about to do to you. Why you go out there and say that you're into this? So we have been so traumatized, it's like PTSD in our community. It affects everything that we do. And because our grandparents, our parents, not all parents is as cool as I am, that, you know, but most of the parents seriously have a heart attack. Even I feel like we need to be talking to our kids about getting into this business. Make this one of your college choices. You know, let's go and get a diploma in this. But a lot of people in our community are not for it, and that's because the government has brainwashed so bad and scared us so straight that it had no other option. So I think the more we talk about it and have this open dialogue about how beneficial it is, the easier things will become. It's just a matter of time.
Wait, I just want to say one more thing. I feel like it's our jobs as economic empowerment holders, but I get annoyed because like they divide us from the other recreational businesses, right? But we should all be held to the same standards when it comes to the cannabis business, right? Medical, they weren't held to any standards, whatever. But we know what this plant has done, or what the laws they put on this plant and what damage it has done to our community. So every business belongs giving back, meaning when it comes to scholarships, you're paying for scholarships, meaning you're literally giving money to this program or that family that you know that does not have. That's part of what we do, and we haven't even started as UCGA. Is like we have a corner and we had Santa's mailbox there and people were dropping off gifts there, and then we read these letters or whatever. Oh, this is what this kid needs, this kid needs this. We ask people in the community to donate to us, and then we put up our stuff and then go and get them their Christmas gifts, give to those that need it. Those parents that are incarcerated, oh, they're the ones that need help during the holidays, so let's reach out and do that.
The way I look at it is they're breaking down our future mothers and fathers, all the way across the board if you think about it. I mean, even if you think about, like, for example, you'll have a black teenage boy, you know, he starts smoking weed at like 14, whatever it may be, gets caught at school. Next thing you know, he has to go through all these things, has to go to this addiction class, has to pay court fees, his mom's mad at him, he's depressed, the cannabis he really needs, right? I mean, now, you know, he's having all these sorts of things mounting up. This is now his past. And now that's attached to him. He goes forward and goes into the future as a father or a mother, you know, whatever it may be, whoever the situation is, it doesn't matter, it's the same thing. If 70.2% of the industry is owned by white people and it's been 6 times more likely for a black person to get incarcerated, technically it's been legal for somebody.
Oh, I remember the war on drugs in the 90s and the 80s, and my parents fighting it in the 70s, because it's been kind of a family business for me.
I love it.
Yeah, my parents stopped smoking weed in the house when they caught me stealing theirs. And then I had to buy it from my uncles. But yeah, the kids kids who grew up on the DARE program are the police of today. And that continues to be a problem. How many people in this room grow at home? How many of you have heard of one of your friends getting stopped by the police when you've got some materials in your car? Maybe you're bringing some clothes to somebody. I know a gentleman that got pulled over speeding, and the headline reads, "Man caught with 114 pot plants." He had a cloning tray with a bunch of clones, 2 inches tall. But the headline says, 114 pot plants. So John Q. Public and his wife Mary look at this and go, holy shit, 114 pot plants! He must be a criminal! So it still goes on. The war on drugs is still going on by way of stigma and by way of propaganda type headlines like that. I think that police education would go a long way to solving some of that. Like if a cop comes into a home grow, it's usually because he's on your property for some other reason. Maybe your neighbor called and complained, but these days, hey, it's legal, they hang up on them. So they're usually there for something else. Maybe had a fire in the kitchen. And they go and they see your plants and they don't know the difference between a clone and a plant in full flower, and they don't really care. They see a stem with leaves on it, it's a plant. I'm gonna bust you, you're over your 12 plant limit, yada yada. The same goes with if you're in your car and you get pulled over. Make sure you store it properly. I personally would argue that an unlit joint on the front seat of my car is an unopened container. I don't think anybody's put that to the test in front of a judge yet.
I like that.
Could be me. We'll find out next week.
Man gets caught with 114 joints.
114 joints. Holy shit. He must have been high. No, but in all seriousness, a little bit of education on the police's part would go a long way to help people from keep getting in trouble. Like you said, it's legal and people are still getting locked up. And I think people are getting locked up because the police just don't know any better. Like, if they raid your grow and you've got 12 plants that are actually growing and you've got a cloner tray with 20 more and they try to say you're over your plant count, they tear all your stuff down, they toss your house upside down looking for money and guns and other drugs. Eventually you get off in front of the judge when the lawyer explains, hey, you know, this was a cloning tray. Oh, sorry buddy, we didn't mean to completely destroy your house. And oh, you're not getting that money back we found in the mattress either because of asset forfeiture, which is something else we need to deal with as part of social justice, asset forfeiture. In some places, they can take all your stuff. And even if you're not found guilty, your stuff is, and they keep it.
Absolutely. That's crazy. Well, we're out of time, so we'll wrap it up here. If there's any questions, I don't think we can have time.
Any questions?
No, we can't have no time for questions, guys. But, guys, round of applause for these guys. I'll say this though, guys, like, follow these people. You know what I'm saying? Like, communicate. Like, this isn't like, this whole event wasn't made for, you know, people to come in and just like watch somebody and just say, all right, you know, I'll just follow them on social media and that'll be it. No, talk to people in the industry. You know what I'm saying? Really understand what's going on. Let's see if you came here like, you know what? I want to see if I should invest in cannabis. Well, talk to them. They're gonna let you know what's up, and it's as simple as that. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not here to take your money. Everyone's here to grow together. All right. And with that being said, the grow panel. Okay. Now the grow panel, guys, is a panel that obviously I'm excited for everybody. Don't get me wrong, but the grow panel is the grow panel is where the magic happens. And please, come on guys.
Yeah.
I got it. Good. Good. Want me to pour you a cup? You good? Come on, Paul. Come on, really?
See you again, man.
Good to see you. Let's go.
Sorry, man.
My name's Joe. Nice to meet you.
Ben.
Nice to meet you.
Good, you guys. Negative effects of cannabis. Dry mouth.
Indeed.
One of the huge ones.
We might have to
So-
have that thing refilled.
This is the organic cultivation panel, okay? If you want to talk about gas, if you want to talk about fire, you're talking about organic, 100% test-proven medicine, okay? And we're gonna go down the line right now for introductions. Start us off.
All right. Hey, everyone. My name's Joe Dalton. So there's always a story behind it. How did you get started and all that? So I'm going to take a quick second and share that with you. So in the mid-'80s, I'm going to date myself, my mid-50s. Back in the 80s, mid-'80s, there was a lot of dry spells. Some of you in the room remember those.
I was in kindergarten.
Remember that drought? Some guy called me sir the other day. So to make a short story long, I'm in that mid-'80s, no weeds around, you get the good earth, we call it dirt weed, smoking it. I'm in a joint circle, passing it, oh, it's garbage, and I said, I should grow my own. There's this kid in the circle, tall blonde kid, going to Berkeley School of Music, playing the guitar. Cool dude. He goes, you got a place? And I go, yeah. Now, I just made an ego statement saying I'm gonna grow my own, right? Because I'm pissed at smoking shit, earth weed. And I said, yeah, and he says, I'll call my mother and have her send me my legs. And I go, what? You're gonna call my mother? Where I come from, my mother would kill me, then she'd kill me. He says, no, I'm from Colorado, dude. Everybody grows. So I'm like, cool. A week later, my beeper goes off. You guys remember what a beeper was?
The clear ones?
You guys aren't around yet. I had a beeper, I was somebody. So all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, give me a minute, I'm gonna break it to my wife, I'm gonna grow a pot in the house. Just got married, had a kid. I'm 22 years old, and I'm gonna get started growing some weed in the attic. So that's where I got my start. So it goes back to Ben.
Hi, I'm Paul. I don't have quite as awesome of a story to kick off with as
Come
as
on,
you do.
work with me, brother, you can do it.
I guess I have pretty much the same story, only I wasn't married, I didn't have a kid, I didn't have a beeper.
Smartphone.
But I've been growing on and off for only about 20 years. I'm not quite as old as my friend Joe here. But, and I grow a little bit of every which way. I specialize in an organic super soil. That's my love. That's how I grow at home, my own little home medical grow. But I've grown every which way, indoors, outdoors, hydroponic, top feed, super soil, this, that, and the other thing. So I've kind of a little bit of a background in a lot of it.
Hey, how you doing? My name's Kevin Young. I'm actually a local guy. I grew up here in Waltham, actually. I'm from the projects on the north side. I've been involved with marijuana since I was really, really young. I started off using, actually, pretty much 13, 14 years old. Probably what kept me from punching people in the face a lot, stuff like that, you know. So I went to school, went to UMass Boston, got a bachelor's, ended up in criminal justice, became a corrections officer for 6 years, actually. Hated that with a passion. So I got out of the CO thing and took my retirement and flipped it into everything I do now. I'm also a organic grower. My style is a super soil. I do no-till KNF, which is Korean natural farming, and TLO, True and Living Organics, and super soil. It's real live soil with microbes. So we focus on like real organics. And I represent a crew called Boston Baked Buds. We operate in all aspects of weed. We try to do everything, and we do it pretty much. We use everything. We don't waste anything. We don't use any bottled nutrients at all, ever. We use reverse osmosis water or water or navy blue teas, and we have active beneficial bugs in our pots. You can see other plants growing in them. You can see red widow worms. You're mimicking nature. And so you want real clean organic meds that, like Yanni was saying, it's the kind of stuff I think you need to focus on. That's all I have to say for that, guys.
My name is Ben Morgan Dillon. I've been a cultivator since I was 16. I had a passion for the plant because I was born on an all-organic farm, and I grew up with a lot of educators as family. So I originally started with a background in nursing. I did very, very well in that particular degree for a long period of time until I determined that I wanted to start a new avenue. My father got terminally ill with cancer. I ended up providing his hospice care with my wonderful girlfriend. And we really realized that cannabis wasn't just something that was environmentally enjoyable or friendly. It was also something that was really sustainable as a medicine. And we saw the difference that it made in my father's life. So after that, we decided to start a CBD company. I continued my cultivation practices, and we have since then grown into starting a purely organic, like you had said, a KNF, TLO, no-till system, utilizing pure organics and really utilizing regenerative cultivation, not just sustainability. You're not just not detracting from the earth, you're actually regenerating the soil that you're growing into. You're getting compounding effects every single harvest. You can utilize things like this, like you said, with active microbes, beneficial insects, utilizing fungi. You can compound those effects and have truly amazing results with nothing but water and proper systemic environments. You make your plants happy, you make your dirt happy, and the microbes, the enzymes, the worms, like you said, the beneficial insects, they will do all the heavy lifting for you. You simply have to replicate nature and provide a really beautiful ecosystem for them to exist in. And then you can have some amazing, amazing results with really low-end inputs. And that's what we've basically designed our entire cultivation facility around, having the lowest carbon footprint to try to be carbon neutral, lowering the cost of OpEx to make your end product an equal value, both higher profit margins, so you can sustain in this agricultural economy as we're starting to develop as a small end farmer, so that you're able to compete with these large end cultivators. And that's basically what we're here to try to spread the knowledge of and help people and empower in any way that we can.
How's everybody doing? I'm Dave Billings. I am a board member for the Cannabis Growers Association. I am been working in the industry for about a year now. Actually, been growing though since I was 14. I think is the first time my parents caught me. Been growing for a very long time. Most of my experience in growing as going through the years has been mostly outdoor. Been an outdoor, basically guerrilla grower for a very long time. Most of, obviously when you're doing an outdoor, you can't go see your plants for long periods of time. Organics is the way to go. Make sure you have a good base. As long as you can, exactly like everybody else said, as long as you can replicate the nature as most as possible, or even put it in the ground. Groundwork will do, after repetitive years too, result yields better and better because you're using the same area. And just leave it outside. You don't have to do nothing. Nature takes care of it. I've grown all different methods though, everything from hydroponics, organic hydroponics, top feed, bottom feed, indoor growing under LEDs, HPS, everything.
All right, guys, so the question that a lot of people want to know, the differences between outdoor to indoor, greenhouse to hydro. What's the difference? We'll start with you. My man.
Hot seat.
All right, so you got hybrid greenhouse and greenhouse. You have, those are two different ones. Actually, you can break that down even further, down to even smaller greenhouses. A hybrid, like the new style of greenhouses that are being built, especially here in Mass, through a lot of these big companies, are what called hybrid greenhouses. A hybrid greenhouse, you can not only control, there's a full lighting system in it, there's a humidity system built into it to help keep the heat in during the winter time and still be able to produce sunlight going through the whole thing. But then they also have a blackout current. Blackout current will go over and give you your photo period when you're running photo period plants. Then you can go down further than that. Indoor, then you have indoor, which is anything indoor that you're running under a constant light, whether it be your 12 hours, 18-hour, 24-hour period, LED, HBS, CMH, there's the new diodes that are all coming out, a lot of flat panels. You know, then, geez, there's so many different ways to go to this.
So
Keep it simple.
yeah, keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
That's it.
Keep it simple.
That's it, I guess, right? Indoor, outdoor, greenhouse. What else was there?
Hydro.
Then hydro. Hydro can be done indoor, outdoor. It can be done anywhere. That's just the use of using water as your source of energy, water, air. Whereas soil is obviously done in soil. Different mediums for hydro. Anybody else want to elaborate?
So if I were to break it down, I would say that indoor cultivation, hybrid style, and outdoor cultivation are your methodology of environment. Then you have control of fertigation. So you have hydroponic, which breaks down into multiple subsets. Then you have soilless, which breaks down into multiple subsets. And you have soil, which breaks down into basically 3 subsets. Super soil, preconditioned, and then nutrient. And so if you're running in a indoor cultivation, you have a decent initial influx of funds for your actual build out. You're able to titrate and control all of your environmental controls, so you're able to produce a really phenomenal flower. The downside is you have very high operational expenses, OPEX. With outdoor cultivation, you have the exact opposite. You have absolutely no control. You are able to control 0 of your environment, none of the environmentals. You have no control over your pathogenics, over pest pressures, over things like powdery mildew or botrytis. But you are able to have extremely minimal OPEX costs. Your fertigation is basically nil. You put what you want to into the soil. As far as your hydration, your water comes from the sky, unless you want to run some drip lines or do some hand watering. So your expenses are pretty low on the initial, but your high quality is really not going to be there. You're going to be on the low end of the market. As far as hybrid cultivation, you're able to utilize sort of a hybrid of both, hence the hybrid cultivation methodology. You're able to utilize things like environmental controls using HVAC systems, which is your heating, air conditioning, and control. You're able to then instigate things like fertigation or living soil methodologies. We're able to control the exact nutrients that the plant are receiving, and you're able to control the environment that they're in while utilizing the sun for supplemental photosynthesis, while still utilizing secondary lighting for your secondary beneficial light. So if you have a really overcast day, you're able to supplement with some far reds and still increase that photogenesis, so that the plants are still getting what they need, even though the actual light that's coming through the ceiling isn't what they're exactly looking for. That allows you to offset for styles to season. If you have less light or more light, then you can use light deprivation so that you can actually starve plants of light during high photosynthetic portions of the year, like the early spring or midsummer, so you can still pull harvests earlier on. So that allows you to offset those OPEX as well, because you're able to get more harvests per season versus an outdoor. Indoor, you're able to run year round, but again, your costs are substantially higher. When you're able to run in a truly regenerative outdoor cultivation inside of a hybrid style greenhouse, you're really getting the best of both worlds. You're able to lower your OPEX, but dramatically increase your potency and your yield of your product, while still maintaining a really regenerative and low impact carbon footprint. So that's what I would say as far as methodology. As far as hydroponics versus living soil versus soilless, soilless is sort of the medium. You get the growth of the hydroponic, but you're able to get the stability of the soil. You get the mediation and the buffering of that media so that you're not as susceptible to dramatic pH changes as you are with hydroponic systems. With hydroponics, you get phenomenal rapid growth. You do get a depletion in your terpene profiles and your cannabinoid profiles. It's much, much harder to titrate the nutrition that you're trying to give to your plant because you're literally guessing on a day-to-day basis as to what your plant wants. Whereas when you're living with a true organic style, you're giving your plant a buffet of food and you're letting it select daily what it needs, hourly what it needs for its ratios of growth. So you're really allowing the plant to grow at the rate that it wants versus hydroponically, you let the plant grow at the rate you want. You're force feeding it with chelation agents. As far as a soilless media, it's a nice happy balance between the two. You get the ratio of growth, which is leaning more towards the hydroponic, but you get the terpene profile, the cannabinoid profile, and the controllability that leans more towards the soilless while still maintaining some of that buffering agent, but you still start with an inert soil substance. So everything that you're putting in there, you're putting in there. Whereas with a soil, you're able to really allow it to develop on its own and stand on its own two legs, really breed some proper microbiology, fungi, hyphae, and allow the soil to do the work and the heavy lifting for you like we had originally discussed with the microbes and the fungi. They're really your hardest workers, not you.
Yeah. All right, Ben.
I'm sorry.
I was taking it in as fast as I could. I was taking mental notes.
So after that, to follow
awesome.
up, I mean, Ben pretty much covered everything there. So I think one thing people need to keep in the back of their mind is your style of growing may be determined of the size of growing space you have. If you're an apartment grower, greenhouses and stuff like that obviously isn't going to work. If you're an apartment grower, hydro, water is heavy. So when you have to move water alone around in an apartment and you have to crash into stuff, and when you if you take a 30-gallon bucket and you fill it up with water, and you go try to lift that up and it's like 300-400 pounds, that's the things that you need to keep in the idea is keep your growing space in the back of your mind. The reason you're growing, if you're just doing it for yourself and you want some clean, good meds, stuff like that, small growing space, it's a different focus than outdoors, than greenhouses. So if you're a beginner grower and you're trying to think of a style and you want to figure out which way you're going to go with it, definitely keep this growing space in your mind.
That's key.
So to elaborate on what they just said, I mean, Ben laid it all out as far as how Viandi asked it. And to elaborate further on, your name was Kevin, sorry, my apologies. Kevin was just saying, your space and what you're looking to do, that all comes into play. I guess depending on what you're going to do as a grower, you have to figure out what is your why are you doing this, and what's your end goal. Everyone in this room who might want to be growing might have different reasons behind doing it, and that'll determine what you're ultimately going to do. I mean, my home grow is all completely super soil, organic. It's my love, it's my craft. I've been doing it for a long time. Just by default of having been doing it for a long time, I'm doing it under dinosaur HPS lights because my grow has been set up long enough where if it ain't broke, don't fix it, especially as a small home grow. However, on the business side, I am an applicant to Massachusetts, and we're going for top tier cultivation, 3 retail, manufacturing, all of it. And we're building a hybrid greenhouse, and we're going with top feed, drain to waste, in cocoa, for all these different reasons. On the commercial side, those were just the more economical ways to go, the ways, for lots of business strategy. That's how that played out. I couldn't bring necessarily, I'll probably have my own corner of the greenhouse where I'll have my organic line. But on the production side, it wasn't where we were going as a business. So whether you're a home grower, whether you're a commercial grower, those things are going to matter. Looking at it from the commercial side, because a lot of us are getting into this industry, the future of cultivation in Massachusetts and New England is definitely going to be these hybrid greenhouses. Our climate doesn't really allow for really awesome outdoor growing, especially with our risk of mold and the fact that everything has to, everything now we're preaching lab test, safety, 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 safety. It's really difficult to beat botrytis in New England. It's tough, especially on any sort of massive scale. You're not going to see things like you see out in Colorado where they fly the drone over and it's just 1,000 acres of plants and rows as far as you can see. That's going to be really difficult to do in New England without having everything go to mold in September when an early nor'easter rolls through. So, and then that being said, also going forward, just sustainability, trying to warehouse grow into the future, it's just not there. you know, the cost effectiveness, the energy consumption, not just, you know, from a green standpoint, Massachusetts actually restricts us. You have to be restricted down to 36 watts per square foot as a commercial grower indoors in Massachusetts. You can't grow under old school high pressure sodium lights. The LED lighting that's out there that's worth its weight is so super expensive. You know, barriers of entry, startup costs, trying to get into this on the grow side, that's the other issue now. If something like a hybrid greenhouse is the future of growing in Massachusetts, I'm going to tell you that they're very expensive. We're talking upwards of $200 a square foot installed, which is a very expensive structure. And when you're competing with the people like American over in Freetown, who are building a 1 million square foot greenhouse like this, it's one of those things that you have to think about if you're going to get into this industry. That's where it's going. The prices are going to start coming way down because these big greenhouses by the big companies doing everything as efficiently as we can with these, because we can afford these big LED lights. It's just going to make it so that when the market starts to stabilize, the quality of cannabis is going to start having prices drop. It's going to make it very difficult for the indoor grower to compete with. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Paul. Big round of applause. Good, isn't it? I'm going to keep this real simple.
Need more water after that?
You need more water.
Water up front. Sweat light.
Shouldn't have smoked that doobie right before we came up here.
I said I shouldn't have smoked that doobie before I came up here, for those who couldn't hear in the back. I'm going to keep it real simple. Who here wants to grow their own medicine at home? Okay. Because I'm the old school guy with the beeper. I'm going to keep it real simple. That's how I started out. I went down to the local greenhouse where you buy your poinsettias and stuff, and I went into the back and I talked to the workers that actually work. And I said, you know, I'm going to grow tomatoes at home, and you know, what's the best thing? They said, oh, use this soil here. That's your grow store. Go and see them. They got a great selection of soils. Get a pot. Find a friend with some seeds. I'm going to get to your point in just a second about which indoor, outdoor. And just get started. Get yourself a light. Inexpensive. Now, I grew up in a large family. There wasn't much to go around, so I grew up with very little. This is my sob story. So I'm very conservative when I go to buy things. These guys will all tell you.
Farmers.
You want to be a rock star? Go buy a very expensive guitar, but you can't play it. Start out small, inexpensive. Buy used equipment. Start there if you have a budget issue. Borrow it from a friend. So the kid from Colorado, his mother sent the lights. We had lights. Yes. Metal halide. It was fantastic. Just a circle reflector and a bulb hanging. Simple. Plug it in. You start your grow. It's real easy. The guys at the grow stores, they all grow. They can guide you through it. Real easy. Internet's got plenty of it. YouTube is fantastic. Start out small. That's how I started out. I use back guano. Now, I've always been an organic grower, so when they ask me, I'm like, yeah, I'm all about the organics, the living soil, you know, the food web. You know, when you look at nature, nature takes care of itself. They don't have to go to the store and buy nutrients and pour it in there. It's already there. It's in the mycelium that's breaking everything down, feeding the roots. See, as above, so below. The roots are fed by the microbes. The microbes break down the organic matter and feed it to the roots. The plant is autotrophic. It feeds itself. The exudates, the sugars that release in the roots, feed the microbes. The microbes say, hey, I want some more food, so they inject some growth hormones into the roots. Roots get bigger, more surface space, more microbes, more sugars. Towards the end, the plant goes, I really need that energy up here now because I need these resins to protect me from the sun and the bugs, and that's what the medicine is. So we talked about that. But indoor and outdoor growing, I'm playing myself. So, I like to have fun when I'm teaching. It's dopamine that's coming out right now. It's a memory chemical, the doctor says. So indoor growing is very easy. You just got to find a little space. If it's a closet, use the closet. If you don't have that, get a small little tent. You get it at the grocery store. So now you're growing indoors. You're gonna need a grow buddy. You know why? Because we have a life. You go on vacation, you get a long weekend somewhere. Your plants are like a new pet. Right, guys? You just got a
They're
puppy.
children. They're your
It's
children.
a cool puppy, but the puppy needs attention. It's actually more like a cat, because you can leave it for a little bit. Because they got their little pooper and everything, and you can fill up the little water thing, a little automatic feeder. You can leave them for a little bit. They're still gonna need some attention. So remember, if you're gonna do it at home, find a grow buddy, somebody you can work with, a partner. That's how I learned. And I've taught others the same exact way. Because I want to have a grow buddy, because I want to have a life. It makes you, it's so much more enjoyable. Now, a couple of other things, and we're going to get to the outdoor in just a second. All right, getting to that, getting up to that. Tell you how to do it, because they did it last year.
Slow turn.
Take your time. I like to just deliver it, you know? So, one of the things that I recognize back, you know, a lot of us deal with winter depression. It's from the light cycle. And I figured that out when I was growing weed. Because I dealt with it. It was severe in the wintertime, depressed. The light cycle is short. It's not a long day, it's a short day. It's gray, it's dreary, there's no trees, right? So you get depression. Now I started growing weed, and I thought I was just happy because I'm growing this killer weed that I couldn't tell anybody about. Not a soul. My wife knew, the kid from Colorado knew, and I knew, and I never told anybody. I made up lies. There's a guy going to Hawaii, he's bringing it in, he's smuggling it in, this is green killer weed. My God. My friends had never seen green weed before. It was all pressed Mexican, Colombian, Italian. Earth, the good earth. Dirt weed. Nothing worse than dirt weed. De-seeding. You guys remember oh, you guys remember
Oh, yeah.
seeds? Seeds are.
I do.
Send some million kings. Oh, we got a old school back there.
I was just telling them earlier, I broke one before, dude, and it had a whole bird wing in it. It was awesome.
Just use a shoebox lid and shake the seeds out.
See? I was doing that the other night because I create seeds. So I do my own breeding. I'm working on strains, so cultivars. So I like to do that. So I was de-seeding the other night, and I put a little video out on my Instagram. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's City Grown.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, it's a plug. You didn't. You should have plugged, man. You had the opportunity. You had it in your hand. Could have plugged. So Instagram, City Grown. You can check out some of my stuff. I've been growing under fluorescent lights for the last 5 or 6 years. People, when I say that online, I go in some of the forums. I post fluorescent lights. It explodes. What do you mean? I show them pictures. I go, it's induction lighting, low cost energy, low heat. I don't have to use as much air conditioning. A little bit pricey up front, but the lamp lasts for 10 years. So I don't change it out bulbs, so I'm more socially responsible to the environment. Now, outdoors. There we go. So, a friend of mine got one of these cool little greenhouses. It's a small one. It's about 20 feet long, 10 feet wide. It's a $200 thing on Amazon. He gets home, he sets it up in his backyard. His wife comes home and, take that down. He had to take it down that day. She was pissed. So I knew he had it. I said, hey, you want to sell it? He goes, you want it? You can have it. It caused me a lot of pain. You mean I can have it? Sure. He gave it to me for free. I set it up last year out in my backyard. So I got this cool little greenhouse. Now I'm a vegetarian, so I have a big garden of vegetables because it's expensive to buy vegetables, so I grow my own. And I know it's organic. I know it's clean. No till in my gardens. I just put a layer of carbon, which is the leaves from the tree, mow the lawn, put that's your nitrogen. Make sure I got plenty of worms in there. And mycelium growing, breaking everything down and feeding the microbes in the soil. So, the greenhouse. I'm like, okay, the year before I grew in my garden, first time outdoors, I was always an indoor grower, always hidden, never told a soul. Back in 2012 when it became legal, I came out of the closet, I kind of went out. And then I ended up going to some events where some people were at, and I'm looking around and I'm going, because I used to have long hair, just like him. Back in the day, I was free-spirited, didn't have any burdens, just, it was awesome.
I see the fro here. You know, you're not just going to.
So I'm at one of these parties, and I'm looking around, and I'm going, it's 2012. Remember, it's just becoming legal. I'm looking around. Who's the narc in the room? Who's the narc? Who's the narc? Everybody's looking at me. This is a clean cut. I'm like, they think I'm the narc. Oh crap, life is over. So the greenhouse. The year before I grew out in the garden, I didn't have a greenhouse, and I found out about mold, how quickly it comes on. I'm growing indoor weed, big fat buds, dense, yeah. They get loaded with water at the end of the season, condensation, hot and cold. Hot during the day, cold at night, you've got nice moisture inside your buds, and they're gonna rot. Botrytis, it's a mold, bad for you, can't smoke it, kill you. Okay, you guys picking up so far? Okay. Now, second year, I got the greenhouse. I'm like, now I can have a little bit of control. And I decided I'm gonna do light deprivation. Light dep, these guys are talking about these greenhouses. They're talking real high-end, high-tech, commercial growing. You're gonna go that way. You're gonna spend $3-4 million to set that up. I'm talking about my backyard so I can grow my own medicine. So I wanna grow these phenomenal cultivars outdoors, but remember, all of the stuff that's been around, that is around today, it's not land raised, it's cultivated variety. That means man's touched it. That means it was grown indoors for the last 40 years. So these cultivars have been grown indoors under fake light. We take care of all the inputs, and now we want to bring them outdoors. Now, you see how white the skin is? I go outdoors on a hot summer day, and I go out there all day long. What's going to happen? I'm going to get roasted. I have no base, right? Very sensitive skin. Oh, I'm going to be looking like a lobster. 15 minutes that it happens to me. So now, your plants, you had them indoors. Now all of a sudden, you're going to bring them outdoors. Stick them in right out in the sunlight. You have to harden it off. That means, like, if I wanted to go out in the full sun, I got to go out a little bit, come back in. A little bit, come back in. You do the same things with your plants. Otherwise, you'll come out the next day and you'll find them all wilted from the sun because you burnt them. Right? Now, I use induction lighting, which hardens them off indoors because of the light spectrum. It's a full spectrum, has UVB in there, so it's like sunlight, so it hardens them off. So I can actually bring them right up, and they're ready to go. So keep that in mind when you're doing the indoor growing, you want to do outdoor, because I do both now. So light deprivation, what I did is, I was probably, let's see, I'm trying to remember, it was in July, just probably the second week of July, I started light deprivation on my little portable greenhouse, and I got a tarp, it's a light deprivating tarp, and I set it up with bamboo poles with lines going across so I could pull it over. At 4 o'clock every day, I would go out there and pull that cover over, cover it and black it out. Have a fan inside moving for air circulation. And all of a sudden, I'm tricking the plant into saying it's now fall. Do that for 2 weeks, and you trigger the plant, and then I can take it off. I'm finished at the end of August, beginning of September, where the outdoors are going to end at the end, October. And you've got that hot-cold situation. So I was finished before anybody else was. I had big, fat, nice nugs, and I had protected it from all the molds and all the stuff, and I was happy. I'm going to go back to the depression thing from the winter, growing indoors. I realized that exposure of the photons in my eyes helped me to lose that depression in the winter, and I was like, yes, bright lights make you happy. So does the cannabis. It's a medicine. So if you suffer with light deficiency in the winter and depressions, start growing some herbs at home. Even if it's flowers, get in front of a bright light for at least an hour, and all of a sudden you'll notice you start to feel uplifted and happy again. So, indoor, closet, a tent, outdoor, you have to, in Massachusetts, it's supposed to be covered, blocked, can't be seen from the road, so check your regulations. But if you are going to grow outdoors, keep in mind that you need to trigger the plant early if you want to have a successful finish. Now, you can successfully finish outdoors through the whole season, but the cultivar is very important that it's a resistant type of cannabis that you can grow outdoors. So
it finishes early.
And it finishes early, correct, Paul? Thank you.
One touch on his statement about light, as far as actual alteration of deprivation of your own senses. It's not your eyes, it is your skin. Your skin is actually the vitamin D receptor that allows for the conversion ratio, which allows that photoreceptivity to be converted into an antidepressant factor.
I would agree with
Vitamin
that
D
for
is the
sunlight,
deficiency.
but we're talking about indoors. So when I was indoors, I was covered anyways. But when I grow indoors and add that extra hour of light or two, in my case, I like to hang out my plants. And
I agree with him.
I play music, I play classical, I mix it up. So plants gather energy, like we put off energy. We have a torus field around us. Starts from your heart, it's energetic.
We exude that, and our plants are imprinted with that. Now water is a memory retaining element. It retains memory. They've proven this. So I use spring water. I gather, I put it in 5-gallon jugs. I go to a natural spring, fill it up, and bring it. It's a lot of work, but it's passion. The finished product with your own energy expressed on your plants, the water that you're feeding them have an energy and a memory. The herbs are then consumed by you, whether it's smoke, taken in, eating it, whichever it is. You're putting that energy back in yourself. So keep that in mind when you're using your water. Now, if you're using water, reverse osmosis is the way you do it, because if you have chloramine or chlorine in your water, you're going to extract that, otherwise it kills the microbes in the soil. It's pool water. Don't drink it either. It's not good for you. Spring water or filtered water, or actually distilled water is the best way. But water is very important as an element to add to the soil, keep the soil alive, that you can feed itself. So like I said, I started out with just back guanos, top dressings, and that was it. And I let it compost. It was phenomenal. What did I know? And then as you progress, you start adding, you add your nutrients. Now I've bought plenty of liquid nutrients, but that's to feed the microbes in the soil, affect the microbes, I add them in. So, but keep it simple in the beginning. Just go get a bucket, dirt, seed, a light, and get started. Who's next?
All right. You guys are awesome. It's like, you guys are awesome, And so, startup cost. Oh, go ahead.
All right, so I'm not sure if I heard it. So how do you prevent things like pesticides and molds and like indoor things? You're controlling the environment. How do you?
I guess.
Is it even possible to prevent that?
Here's the one big tip for that is be proactive, not reactive.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of people wait until they have an issue and then they try to fix it and they lose a whole yield. They do a peroxide wash or you trying to kill pests that are flying around your damn house and stuff like that. So it depends on the method you have of what your options are. With no-till, like we spoke about before, there's beneficial bugs that you put in called predatory nematodes. You can use ladybugs. You can use praying mantises. These things attack any kind of gnats or bot flies or whatever, any kind of bug that you're worried about, any kind of bug at all. The moths that come in, anything. They take care of this stuff, right? Now also, you want to build your soil up so that it is mold resistant. If you don't have a mold resistant soil, and like you said, you're grown in New England where it's our summers are hot, damp, humid, and your soil's not mold resistant, you're gonna end up with mold and botrytis, and you're gonna smoke a bunch of trash.
Yeah. I'll add to that just real quick. One of the things that I learned, again, doing it on a budget, so startup costs, my budget was always, I had no money, so I had to do it just go get a bucket that was a paint bucket and clean it. I don't suggest that, but you get the point. You go to Home Depot and buy a bucket, but the bugs around the house, I had that problem. I've had white flies, I've had mites, I've had mold, I've had all the same problems that you'll have, but that's how you learn. Play sand that you can buy at Home Depot. I put a 1-inch layer on top, and then the fungus gnats that are gonna come out of your living soil, they get through it and it tears them apart. If they try to go in, it tears them apart. So if they're flying around, they try to lay their larvae inside the soil, it shreds their bodies. So it's the quickest way to get rid of the flying gnats.
Prevention, prevention, prevention. Because trying to fix something sometimes isn't even really that fixable. Especially indoors, some of these things that you can get just seem to plague. Bugs tend to be a little easier to kill, but it's not easy for some of them. They lay their eggs in little corners in little places, and it just takes 1 or 2 eggs to hatch, and then infestation is back. Big one, especially indoors, powdery mildew. Once that gets into the garden, it's very, very difficult to eradicate, especially organic.
Systemic.
Do you have I've researched
systemic.
No, that's right. So, people, it's systemic. Well, it's systemic kind of. powdery mildew isn't systemic in that it goes in and out through the whole vascular of the plant, but it's similar in relation to like athlete's foot in that it lives subcutaneously. So the powder you see on the surface is like the reproductive cells, and it's got like a taproot, so to speak, that goes down into the dermal layers of the leaf tissue. So short of cutting it all off, it's very difficult to eradicate. And if you're doing something where you're trying to produce a very clean medicine, you don't want to be spraying things on your plants, especially not in flower. I mean, there are things that are for organic gardening, and you could use something like, you know, on a mother plant, I maybe wouldn't be hesitant to use something like a natural bacteria like Serenade or something. But I'm not going to go spraying that on flowering plants. You know what I mean? It's just, it's supposed to be my organic medicine. So trying to fix something that's gotten into your garden can last generations and generations and just keep popping back up. So preventing it is the big thing. For the mold and everything, that's you know, good filtration over all of your intakes. I'm really crazy about, before I go into my garden, before I even go into my basement, I change my clothes. I have my garden clothes. I don't ever go into my garden with my regular clothes that I've been wearing out and about, and my day job's a landscaper. I don't even walk near my basement in my landscaping clothes, because I probably have spider mites and mold and things all over me. So taking that extra 2 seconds to seriously just change your shoes and change your pants before going into your garden can help prevent all of that stuff from getting in there. To go back to startup costs, this depends on what you're going to do. You know, for me on the business side, I'm looking for $20 million if any of y'all got it, because of what we're going for. But you know, for a home grow to get started, I mean, yeah, you can get started with just like a seed and a bucket in the backyard, real simple. But for a reasonable startup cost, if you're going to go indoors, for say a 4x4 tent, a simple, you know, LEDs are expensive, but let's say we'll go with like something like ceramic metal halide that'll get you through veg and bloom. You'll have a fan, you'll have a charcoal filter. The basics just to get you up and running, a couple pots, a soil grow. You're going to want to spend probably around $1,000 to $2,000, because that gear just, if you're buying brand new, you can provide, use like Joe said, anything. If you just get yourself going, whatever you can do. The only reason I usually advise new growers away from buying used equipment is for warranty purposes. I've had ballasts just just stop working. That's a $300 piece of equipment. And if you just save up $2,000 to get your grow running, and you buy used equipment and something goes wrong, it's great to be able to just run back to the grow store and be like, hey, can I swap this out? It didn't work. Usually your grow store, like Joe said, your grow store becomes your friends. You're there all the time. They all grow. They want to hear about you grow, and they're usually going to want to help you out. So that would be, you know, if you're going to get growing indoors, invest a couple $1,000s and get something that's quality, so that you're not going to get growing and then all of a sudden have equipment failures, because that's a bummer.
Stay on that for a second.
Just want to tap in on used equipment. Just like he said, he changes his clothes before he goes in, and you're worried about bringing stuff in. With stuff like dehumidifiers and ACs, they grab from somebody else. They might not have a filter in it that hasn't been cleaned by them, and it might be in their dirty garden with mold or anything in it. So be careful with used equipment, because you don't want to bring outside stuff into your environment also. So definitely clean it up really well. Sterilize the hell out of it. Whatever you can do to clean it up before you bring it into your own grow space.
And on that note, clones. Don't take clones from people. Don't. No.
Unless you are an entomologist and a pathologist, don't do it. All right. So you don't know what you're looking for to tell you that plant is actually clean. You can lose upwards of hundreds of thousands of dollars as product if you don't know what you're doing. Something from russet mites, broad mites. They're able to transmit themselves on the legs of the insects that you're looking for. You will not see them.
Best bet is start with seeds. You can have a strong taproot, you'll have great success. Question?
Actually, I have a question to follow up on what Joe was saying before about certain strains being better for outdoors. Can you guys all recommend, like if it's your first time, seeds that are better or strains that are better for outdoors, and also maybe even going further, what's good in the tent the first time you're growing?
That's a great question.
It is a good question. question. I would say I can't be talking about much outdoors. I've done 2 outdoor grows, so I'm nowhere near. So I'm a neophyte when it comes to the outdoor. So I'm not the guy that says, what would be that? Maybe some of these guys, I'll pass it down. What's best, the guerrilla growers would know the outdoor stuff in this region. Indoors, I can talk all about that. Been doing that for an awful long time. I've done all types of rooms, from closets, I've done attics, I've done sheds, I've done hidden rooms, built inside structures. I mean, we got very elaborate. As the money flowed, you could reinvest it back into your operation. Then you started to inject with CO2 to really get these things to thrive. And then there's lots of different things you can do as you grow up. Once you get bit by the bug and you're passionate about growing the herbs, and you say, why should I pay for it when I can grow it myself for a fraction of the cost and control all the inputs and have clean medicine for myself? That's what I said. That's what I do today. So I would say indoor, seeds, all types of seeds grow great indoors. I would say if you're going to start out in the very beginning and you want to have a great success, really short order, go with an auto-flowering plant, a ruderalis.
Medicinal genetics.
Yeah, just you pop it in, you watch it, and it's going to do everything it needs to do it. And you'll have a nice flower at the end that'll be tasty and simplified. That's the simplest way. I'm at a point where I'm challenging myself to create new cultivars by crossing. I'm looking to create a cultivar now for cancer. So I'm looking for those strains, and I'm pheno-hunting. That means I'm growing a bunch of plants from the same parents, but the phenos, or the expressions that come out, that's through the terpene profiles, are all going to be a little different. Like I have 8 siblings. There's 9 of us. We have similar traits. We look similar. You can tell we're from the same family, but we're not identical. That's what growing cannabis is. And you try to stabilize that seed. So then, if you're going to sell it commercially, that's not my goal. Mine is to create a cure that I can share with friends and family for cancer. Because how many of us have lost someone to cancer? Every hand in this place goes up, right? How many of you know that have cancer now? A lot of us. And so once you learn how to extract this resin, okay, the glandular trichomes, you can extract them. You can turn them into concentrated versions that people can ingest or they can take. And now we talked about the suppository. So I'm going to work on a suppository blend for pets and for humans. Because through the rectal area, you're not going to pass it through the liver, so you're not going to get as wasted, so you can still function a bit. When it goes through your liver, it metabolizes into hydroxy-11. It's much more potent. You're going to get stoned, and you're going to go to sleep. Question? Can you talk about the genders of plants? Male and female.
So,
And
hermaphrodites. Yes, they're not just male and female. That's the.
You guys didn't answer the first question. What seeds are good for?
Okay, so real quick to answer that.
Yeah, I can chime in.
I would say, so you want to find genetics that have the shortest flowering time if you're going to grow outdoors in New England. You start looking at the seed banks and you start looking through all the fun names. They're all going to give you a flower time on what you should expect for the flowering to be. You want to go as short as possible if you're not going to get into this cool light deprivating techniques like Joe was describing. You're just going to grow it right through the season. Because you want something that's going to start beating that mid-September humid, dew-laden mornings, where every single morning you walk out there, your shoes get wet, because every night all the dew settles. You want strains that are going to be mature or finished up before that gets to be an issue. Autoflowers, the ruderalis, like Joe mentioned, they're a great option, especially for new growers, because from seed to harvest, 60 to 70 days. They're fairly stable, you're going to get fairly consistent, it's going to be decent. You're going to get smoke that you're like, holy shit, I grew that. That's good shit. Oh man. You know, those of us who are like, or get, you know, that are always seeking the best of the best of the best, we're usually not going for autoflowers. They're going to produce something good, but it's not going to be that incredible, you know, fire, that, you know, a cup winner. But they're great for the patient, the backyard grower, the deck grower. Eat little 5-gallon buckets. They're not going to get huge. They're going to give you something. And because they mature so quickly, and with their genetics and where they come from originally in the Siberia type region, you can start them off fairly early, and you may get 2 or 3 harvests in the whole year, while the growers who are growing the big monster trees are waiting through vegetating and the photo period, finishing off in October. You've already got harvest. So those are really good for the new grower to get going with. on that as well, if you weren't going to go autoflower and you were going to go photo period and you wanted to try to get something that was good fire, you want something bragging rights, I usually recommend, even though it's pricey, going for top name genetics. You can find cool little genetics companies that are worthwhile, but if you don't really know the connections and know them and you're just going by, the offer on Facebook, tag a friend, share, and like this thing, we'll give you a free pack of seeds. I don't touch those because I've had too many random no-name genetics, hermaphrodite in my garden, and seed everything. So genetics of plants, when you talk about gender, there's male plants, there's female plants. We can see the difference with their flower. Male plants produce flowers for pollen. Females produce flowers for making seeds, the baby makers. And hermaphrodites have both male and female flowers. So a true hermaphrodite will start to express that at the time the flowers are coming on. You'll start getting male and female flowers right at the same time, which is different than intersexing. That's a different thing due to stress. But a plant, that brings you to the plant can change its sex. So a plant that is female, that is genetically female, if you give it under certain stress conditions, or if you try to grow it too long and get it too big and push it past its maturity and its ripeness, it'll actually start to send out male flowers from the female bud in order to self-pollinate. This is an evolutionary adaptation. We deprive female plants of male pollen in order to get the sensimilla, the seedless variety. These plants, where I told you they have a flower time, if this plant's genetics say it's going to be mature and it's ready to be harvested at 63 days, say, and you think, well, by logic, if I keep pushing it, and if I grow it to 73, it's just going to keep getting bigger, right? Because we're depriving it of male pollen. It wants to swell, keep making more sites for more possible seeds. But the male pollen never shows up. So evolutionary adaptation, that plant wants some genetics to hit the ground next year. Sends out a few random little male pollen sacs, self-pollinates. Now those seeds, they're going to germinate next year. They're going to be genetically inferior. They're going to be feminized. They're going to have no Y chromosome. More likely to potentially hermaphrodite later on. But and that's its adaptation to at least making sure that maybe next year there is a male over there that pollinates it. The plants work a little differently than mammals do. But to speak to genders, there's male, there's female, there's hermaphrodite, and they can flip on you if you mess with them.
So to answer your question,
Hug your plants, love them.
if you want to grow outdoors in the East Coast and you don't want to be doing light deprivation or early cultivation, you want to look for indica dominant strains. You want to be looking for broadleaf plants. They have a higher resistance naturally to pathogens such as mold, mildews, botrytis, powdery mildew, which are the number two that we are most commonly associated with the East Coast. The reason for that is that they originally come from an area that had dramatically high heats during the day and then extremely low temperatures at night, so they were getting extremely high dew points. They're getting a lot of moisture laying on their leaves. That's in the Hindu Kush valleys, hence the Kush name. That's where that original genetics comes from. If you want to be growing something that is extremely arid, you're growing in Texas, you're growing in Nevada, you have no humidity. It's the exact opposite of the East Coast. You want to be growing something more like Nigerian sativas, pure African strains. That's the only time that you're able to actually get away with a pure sativa because they're able to grow in those cultivation standards. The majority of us that grow indoors, we have titration of our environment. If you're able to control your environment, then you're a good grower. That is what it comes down to. Your genetic lineage is just what you choose, and your environment is what determines what that genetic lineage does. Environmental control determines everything from terpene to cannabinoid profile developments. Everything that we know about them from scientific backing says that they are an actual reaction to pest pressures, to pathogen pressures, to environmental pressures. That's why we do things such as stressing, UVB light in the end of flowering to increase terpene profiles, to increase cannabinoid profiles and resin development. The profiles that we seek in this plant are defensive measures. It's protective. If you baby this plant and make a bubble boy, you will create, like you were saying, indoor cultivation, which is highly receptive to pathogens, to mold and mildews, to pests, because they have been isolated. They have been purified, so to speak, of these external pathogens, so they have no resistance factors. They have no immune system, if you will. That is what our terpene development or cannabinoid development is. It is the immune system of this plant. If you do not consistently stress it in the appropriate manners, you will start to get deteriorated lineages. You will get bad genetics. You will start to have higher fermaphrodation ratios. Like you were talking about the rugaralis, it originally comes from Siberia, the Russian areas. Therefore, it was heading in pure equatorial. It was getting huge amounts of sunlight, therefore it was not allowed to develop via a photo period. It did not get a 12-12 ratio or an 8-16, so it wasn't able to convert, so it has to do it on its own time schedule. Therefore, they are very stable in what they do, but they are very fluctuant in their profiles. So to get a positive, really good profile of cannabinoid and terpenes in an autoflower is very difficult, but if you can find it, it's phenomenal for beginning growers. If you want something that is easily sustainable, I recommend you lean more towards a broadleaf product. They are easier to grow, they are smaller, they are more resistant to pathogens, susceptibilities, they will take more abuse if you will.
Yeah, they're not so finicky.
They are less finicky. If you go with a pure sativa, good luck. If you can find it, good luck.
Let me know.
If you can find it, let us know.
It'll finish by Christmas.
But as far as indoor versus outdoor, indoor you can titrate to whatever you want to do. Outdoor, look at your hardiness zones. Go right on agricultural and industrial websites. They will tell you where your hardiness zone is. That will allow you to begin to determine what your equatorial variation is. So you can start looking on the other side of the planet and see what plants grow well on the exact opposite side of the world that you live in. That is your equatorial hardness area. You can compare that to where you live and you can start to get actual positive results from your outdoor grow without having major influence on the actual plant's capacity itself.
All right, guys, I hate to do it.
That's it?
I hate to do it to you like that. But guys, time schedule's up, you know what I'm saying? The network is saying it's time to go. All right, but obviously guys, I mean, downstairs is open. If you do want to talk to these guys, like I do all the time, you know, go downstairs, you'll probably have a drink and yeah. But guys, I want to thank all the panelists that came out. Guys, I want to thank you guys for coming out and supporting this. I really hope to do many more. I believe guys like this, like you can't find them. It's hard to find them, you know. And please get the information, guys. Talk to these guys. You know, connect, build a network, build a relationship. All right, but guys, from the Green Torch, from the Rhino Lounge, from everyone in between, from the Watch City, I'd like to thank you guys for coming to the first annual Watch City Cannabis Summit.